increasing your earning potential. The CMA will empower you to gain the knowledge and skills needed to advance your career to new heights, strengthen your analytical and strategic thinking ability to turn data into insights and insights into decisions, and learn how to help businesses build value and better compete in a fast-changing global economy. Rest assured, you will not be alone on your CMA journey. IMA, Institute of Management Accountants, and our community of over 140,000 finance and accounting professionals across India and the world will be behind you every step of the way. Now,
I'm not having video. Why I don't have the video, right?
Also,
You have no privilege to sending video. अच्छा.
potential.
Our blue planet, our green future.
Now is the perfect time to show employers that you not only have the maturity and competence, also the knowledge and skills they need to drive their business to the next level. CMA and achieve your full career potential.
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir. Over
Yes,
to you.
hi, very good afternoon. Very good afternoon, everybody. We are at 3 o'clock, and my name is Vikesh Walia. I'm the Zonal Director for Institute of Directors at Mumbai, and your host for the day. And we are about to start. We're about to start. I think just give me a minute or so. So, hello, participants from across the world. Here we go live on WebEx and YouTube today, 18 February at 3 p.m. India time sharp. Very good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending where you are logging in from. To all our guests of honor, distinguished speakers, participants, and sponsors, I have great privilege in welcoming you all on behalf of IOD Mumbai Chairman Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti and Team IOD Mumbai to this regional conference on Board Summit, A Confident Corporate India by Institute of Directors. Our umbrella theme is the flavor of the day as India becomes the most favored business destination, and with its fastest growing economy in the world, the pandemic we thought was our biggest problem has turned out to be a biggest blessing with additional manufacturing and export opportunities coming our way and pouring into India from all sides. The recent budget makes this the year of capital expenditure and setting up the mega manufacturing in India. Devices started manufacturing earlier, and now comes the long awaited chip manufacturing in India. India had been waiting to get into chip manufacturing for so long, but wow, it is happening now. This gives huge confidence to Indian corporates to make it big as never before, and hence the umbrella theme of this board summit, A Confident Corporate India. India has already been the global capital of unicorn startups and is now adding decacorns by dozens. Decacorns are the companies with over $10 billion market capitalizations. The valuation has to be more than 10 billion, and they are mega decacorns. They are getting listed on our capital markets in a big way. So the first panel discussion is all about launching decacorns. We have invited best of speakers for this session, led by Sri Sailesh Haribhakti ji, and it includes Mr. Ashish Chauhan, Managing Director and CEO of BSC Limited, Mr. V.S. Parthasarathy, Vice Chairman of All Cargo Logistics Limited and Independent Director of Life Insurance Corporation of India, along with Mr. Vijay Chandok, Managing Director and CEO of ICICI Securities Limited. The second panel discussion is about actioning ESG. ESG has been through the journey of think tanks, global conferences for many years, moving to regulatory mandates, becoming a part of corporate annual reports, and now comes the time that the whole focus is on actioning ESG. Many companies have started linking executive pay to ESG performance, and hence ESG is becoming top priority, not only for the institutional investors, but now with retail investors also. Happily, the consumers also want to relate to ESG brands when a company like Colgate delivers toothpaste without a carton. It becomes the favorite of consumers also. Our list of speakers for this session includes Chair Mr. Santosh Jairam, Global Head of Sustainability at HCL Technologies Limited, one of the largest global IT companies in the world. And we have Mr. Jayavardhan Sembal, who is the Vice President from Hewlett Packard, India. He's joining in place of Shari Litton, who had to excuse herself due to some medical emergency. She is in New York, and just 15 minutes ago, we got a message from her that she is unable to join us. So we have in her place Mr. Sembal joining us from Hewlett Packard. He brings very rich experience as well across best of multinational companies in the world. And the third panelist is Mr. Anup Sahai, Head of Corporate Strategy and Special Initiatives at Larsen & Toubro Limited. We look forward to an enriching session from these three ESG leaders. Our third panel discussion is on harnessing digital opportunity. India has made big on IT services opportunities in the past, and now it is time for India to make it big with digital opportunity as well. Courtesy Geo and Zoom, we could see through not only our businesses and education, but also our weddings and other social functions as well during the pandemic. The discussion on this between IOD Mumbai Chairman Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti, Mr. Gopal Vittal, Managing Director and CEO of Airtel, along with Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, the digital wizard of India, is surely going to be very, very interesting and exciting as well. Our hearty welcome to our sponsors, principal partners, Life Insurance Corporation of India, Gold Partners, IMA, India, Institute of Management Accountants, Gold Partner, Larsen & Toubro, and supporting partner, Bombay Stock Exchange. So we have all set for the day and the evening, and I would like to invite Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti to kindly deliver his welcome address as the chairman of this virtual conference. Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti is our mentor. He's our chairman. He's our mentor, and he's also a chairman for IOD Mumbai, and brings rich experience of many decades from various prestigious boards like ACC Limited, Ambuja Cements Limited, Blue Star Limited, and Times of India Group, and many more such boards where he serves as chairman and is also an independent director on many of these boards. He is not only a well-known gold medalist, chartered accountant, but also an author, an evangelist on digital technologies, and also on ESG. Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti is now also an investor and mentor for startups, apart from being a very sought-after speaker on national and international business forums. He regularly contributes to government policy think tanks and through various SEBI, CII, and FICCI committees. Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti's contributions have been immense in matters of board, and corporate India looks up to him. He has contributed to more than 100 boards directly and indirectly, and he has been connected with corporate governance, board training, and such matters. There is some joining issue with Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti. I think he has now joined us. Perfect timing. Mr. Haribhakti, we'll request you to kindly give us your welcome address. We all keenly look forward to it, sir. Please.
Thank you, Vikeshji. General Ahluwalia, what a delight to always see you and you're such an inspiration to everybody. I'm very happy to welcome a large and very enthusiastic audience to this wonderful webinar. Let me begin by saying that all of us must together dream of this absolutely extraordinary set of circumstances that we find ourselves in today and be truly a confident corporate India. And what makes me bold to recommend a title of this kind is what I have seen has happened over the last 2 years. The pandemic could have completely stalled us, could have made all actions of corporate India so difficult to overcome. But instead, it gave corporate India the energy and the confidence to innovate and innovate so dramatically on three big parameters, which I now can draw a line through. They focused on cash as a result of resilience and adaptability that were built up. The focus was not on profits as much as it was on cash flow. The focus was also on making sure that there was continuous business model readaptation. So people changed the whole idea. Restaurants lived with the thought that every table in every home is a table in my restaurant. And they moved their entire business model around to make sure that the experience in a restaurant could be enjoyed on the personal dining table of each and every one of our families. And that's how many of the restaurants have come out flying through this very big crisis, which had completely stalled them. People who had a complete stoppage of their supply chains decided to take advance orders with the confidence that within a period of 3 to 6 months, they would be able to come back. And a spice company out of India actually had a growth of 35% because they adopted this confident approach to completely disrupting their own model. And there are many such examples that I can keep narrating. But most importantly, it came home to corporate India that we need to practice sustainability in all its elements, become stewards of the environment. A lot of rethinking happened. The quantum of focus and attention and time spent on sustainability issues, particularly those relating to energy transition, lesser emissions, less material going into landfills, less polluting water, less polluting of air, circular economy ideas, protection of biodiversity, completely trying to eliminate the black zones that have come up on coastal Istanbul, for example, in parts of the Gulf of Mexico, and all over the world where fish simply unable to breathe. Just as many people find a similar experience in some of the most polluted towns, even in our own country. And so the entire attention got focused on becoming stewards of the environment, on becoming socially responsible. So ideas of human rights, of diversity, inclusion, and equity began to truly get implemented. And equally, purposeful governance got implemented. As a result of which, nobody in the world doubts today that India will be the fastest growing major economy on planet Earth, at least for the next 2 or 3 years. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the inspiration behind the title of this summit, A Confident Corporate India. Because we have learned deep lessons. We know how to actually practice them. And we are in a position to deliver on them. So welcome again to this extraordinary set of people that we've been able to get to support us in this fantastic journey of speaking about a confident corporate India. Without collaboration of government, of regulators, of everybody in the country, corporate India cannot be confident. And therefore, that has become an integral and important part. And you will see today that we've been able to get the support from all over to make this a meaningful summit for each and every one of you. My best wishes to all our speakers, my gratitude to each one of them, and my tremendous homage to IOD as a platform for doing good and for doing well while doing good. So thank you, General Ahluwalia, and we would love to hear from you. Back to you, Vikesh, to carry forward our deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haribhakti. You are always an inspiration, and we always love to have your blessings as a mentor and chairman of IOD Mumbai. We are so very blessed to have you with us, sir. And now allow me to invite Lieutenant General J.S. Ahluwalia ji, PVSM, retired. And he's our president of Institute of Directors and also at World Environment Foundation. A postgraduate in electronics engineering and an MBA, he specialized in engineering support to weapon systems of the Indian Army. He has undergone extensive trainings in various defense manufacturing organizations in France, UK, USSR, and Japan. He is a chartered engineer and fellow member of a large number of foreign and Indian professional engineering and management institutions. He has been chairman of Institution of Engineers, India, president of Delhi Management Association, and also chairman of Safety and Quality Forum of Institution of Engineers. Over the last 3 decades, his contribution in promoting good corporate governance in India and globally is unparalleled. He is the only one who has led the showcasing of India's corporate governance in London, Dubai, and Singapore, resulting in huge capital inflow to India, helping our country's economic growth. He has mentored Masterclass-for-directors by giving India more than 10,000 trained and certified corporate directors, which are a great asset in taking forward the corporate governance in the country. May I request General Ahluwalia ji to kindly deliver his president's address for all of us in this conference.
Thank you, Vikesh. Thank you very
Ahluwalia,
much.
sir, please.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to Haribhakti ji and for his very kind words and very excellent introduction to the subject of today and the importance of those subjects. That is the main part which I saw. And I very sincere and hearty welcome to all of you at the IOD Mumbai's regional webinar. Now, as far as the board summit, the name or the title, board summit, A Confident Corporate India. I am grateful to all of you for being here and for the Bombay office and especially Vikesh Walia and the Shri Haribhakti ji for organizing this valuable board summit and such illustrious speakers. It is going to cover 3 main areas: startups, ESG, and digitization. All the 3 areas are really of top corporate importance as far as today is concerned. I mean, board's importance, I don't have to give to you. You're all from the same area. But I would only like to say what few words about IOD before I really go. IOD is a non-profit organization of the Association of Corporate Directors, just like Institution of Chartered Accountants or engineers or others. This is the only association in the country of directors. And so all the time, our role is to see how to make them ready for the board and how to make these boards future ready. These are the main areas based on which all training, networking opportunities, whether it is webinar or conferences. We have conferences annually, about 8 to 10 international global conferences being run in Mumbai and in India, all the metro towns, I would say. Apart from this, it is being held since 2003 in London, in Dubai, and in Singapore. So these are all for getting them all together, sharing each other's experiences, and improving the benchmark for India, the board and the directors functioning in India. That is the whole purpose for which this organization exists. And I would just say that what it is now today, I mean, we've realized and we're focusing on, we have set up a board strategic foresight cell as to how the board should look at the business and business strategy and their own functioning over the next 10 years as to what are the possible pathways, what are the likely positions, how to see the foresight, how to look into the future. And so because board has got its own dynamics, it has to formulate a future ready strategy. That is the main purpose for which we're trying to see that we are valuing these things. The boards must understand operational resilience strategy, as Haribhaktiji brought out, and its critical compliance. The challenges remain with the boards for all time. It is not only a present challenge. The independent directors have been added to the board as watchdogs, watchguard, whatever you may say, for disclosure and related party transactions. These are critical and can adversely affect its interests. We have to also see that as far as the board's risk appetite and tolerance, etc., are concerned, board to frame and implement and monitor the risk management plans, etc. The ESG, I would just like to mention once again that on 23rd of this month, February, the headquarter IOD is also organizing a global ESG meet, which will be more or less the whole day's session. And it is available and you're all most welcome to attend it, in which we will have a few speakers from South Africa, from USA, from UK, a few of them from UK, not one, and a number of other international experts on ESG. It will focus only on the ESG. You see, the sharpening climate crisis as well as COVID-19 pandemic, they have helped to make ESG a top concern today. ESG has become a gateway for the new frontiers of change. And recently I heard Unilever announcing that the brands leading its sustainability agenda accounted for half their business growth last year. Now that's exactly telling you what is going on. Look at LIC. It even delayed its IPO so that it makes its ESG footprint larger and to be able to attract more investors from abroad, apart from other investors here, whether of the millennium type or the women who are more inclined to in these areas right from the beginning. Even IIM Ahmedabad has set up an ESG Center for Research and Innovation for in-depth research on the ESG norms. So the ESG agenda continues to evolve as a strategic business imperative. The ESG strategic reviews, they embrace, of course, the normal circular economy practices, throwing up new business opportunities across segments like energy optimization, waste management, electric mobility, and sharing of economy. Stewardship in the 21st century is centered around a value-driven purpose and linked to responsible capitalism. The advantage of ESG compliance by a company are top-line growth, higher profit margins, less legal and regulatory interventions, and investment and asset optimization through inflow of ESG funds. The environment sustainability, when you take the first part of E, shifts from wasteful extraction to sustainable, regenerative, equitable system, optimal natural resource and energy consumption, and a responsible waste and pollution management, leaving minimal environmental footprints. The social dimensions are linking and tying the company with the local community, concern for the employees and working conditions, and diversity, inclusion, and long-term well-being of stakeholders. When you come of governance, the scope of improvement is huge. We're all seeing the ease of doing business being implemented by the government, and we see what changes are really taking place. Ensuring transparency, stakeholder well-being, and through systems, processes, and audit controls. One more important thing in this area is spending on R&D, research and development needs special attention from us in India, which is today only 0.6 to 0.7% of GDP over the last 2 years, compared to USA's 2.8% and China's 2.1%. The board's role is to pay more attention in addressing various environmental, social, and economic challenges, to adopt sound ESG practices, and a future-ready board will require multiple stakeholder, customer-centric, dynamic ESG strategy adaptation, right mix of skills, gender, age, ethnic diversity to guide ESG strategies and programs, develop ESG foresight and accountability, create a specific ESG committee to oversee the ESG matters in your company, and develop a climate resilience, eco-innovation, and various other such matters which will go on. The investment, as far as ESG funds are concerned, the ESG funds invest in mutual funds following the ESG criteria, and ESG funds look for compliant companies. So naturally, they will come only where ESG is in practice. ESG investments offer tax benefits to the investors, and globally, ESG assets are likely to hit, that is globally, 53 trillion by 2025. A third of global assets under management, that is. Women hold more than 5 trillion investable assets and are certainly going to play a key role in the years to come. So a greater focus on ESG is going to yield higher resource use efficiency, and ESG choices are becoming the investment drivers. So we have to be looking for this. Only thing is that ESG standards were not there, and that became a little, this lack of consensus on ESG criteria. They held back asset managers and collective investment vehicles a little back. This is what is likely to get okay, as IFRS has set up an international standards committee, which is going to give its final recommendations by the end of 2020 to 22. And so we should be able to have a proper standard with which ESG sustainability reporting, which will focus on standard ESG reporting issues, that really would be the need of the hour. Of course, in India, SEBI has already set up a BRSR reporting standards, which has become mandatory for the top 1,000 Indian companies from April 22 onwards to disclose their ESG footprints. Now, it is fine, but these international sustainability standards, once they come up, probably this will also have to be changed, and we would prefer something in which corporates don't have to make too many reports, but integrated standard reporting system, which globally they have been trying, and we have been also following, top companies are following it, just likely to move up. So these are the various aspects in which corporates are working, and the IOD is much concerned with as to how ESG, sustainability standards, sustainability reporting, and these are going to take shape for ease of our organizations. Thank you very much. Wish you a lovely, useful evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Your address is always so very inspiring. We are grateful to you for your time that you could spare for us. And now we need to move into the first panel discussion for the conference. It's on launching decacons. As I had earlier mentioned, that India has already become the global capital of unicorn startups and is now adding decacons by dozens. Decacons are the companies with valuations of over $10 billion, 75,000 crores or so of rupees, are getting listed on our capital markets in a big way. So the first panel discussion is all about launching decacons. We have invited best of speakers for this session, led by Shri Salish Haribhakti ji, who has already been introduced to you. We welcome our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. Ashish Chauhan, Managing Director and CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange, whose contributions are manifold across industry and social forums. I keep wondering if, like he has special platform for MSME on BSc, would he also give a special platform for unicorns and decacons? I think Mr. Chauhan should consider this, because the way this growth is coming. High-speed trades, efficient and flawless running of Bombay Stock Exchange is indeed pride of India's capital markets globally under his leadership. Mr. Chauhan is a sports enthusiast, stays young and fit, also due to his closer interaction with the next gen via the startups he mentors at Bombay Stock Exchange and other forums, and his mentoring of various university students in his capacity as Vice Chancellor and senior mentor for these universities in different parts of the country. Welcome, Mr. Ashish Chauhan. We welcome our guest of honor. We welcome our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. V.S. Parthasarathi, a chartered accountant and a Harvard alumni. He is the Vice Chairman of All Cargo Logistics Limited, also independent director on many boards, including the new star of the Indian corporates, Life Insurance Corporation of India. Partha, as popularly known to his dear ones, contributes to various social forums, supports women empowerment, education, and employment initiatives. He is highly awarded and recognized by various industry forums. We welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Parthasarathi. We now welcome our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. Vijay Chandok. Mr. Vijay Chandok is the Managing Director and CEO of ICICI Securities Limited. Mr. Chandok has nearly 3 decades of hugely success stories to his credit at ICICI Group. He has been behind the success of many IPOs, including a recent well-known decacon called Nykaa. He contributes hugely through various industry forums like FICCI, CII, and SEBI committees, and has many recognitions to his credit from industry forums and his alma mater, Narsimha Institute of Management Studies. Over to Mr. Hari Bhakti and the three decacons of the day here. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikesh Bhai, for these excellent introductions. Very warm welcome to all three of you, my friends, Vijay, Ashish, Partha. It's such a delight to be on a panel with the three of you. Corporate India has seen not just one decacon, but multiple decacons come into existence as a result of all the work that you all have done in your wonderful roles in capital markets, in corporate India, in financial services ecosystem. And so, without much further ado, let me request you all to talk about this explosion of value that we are experiencing in India in terms of our markets and in terms of individual companies acquiring the $10 billion tag so rapidly that it sometimes leaves all of us breathless and also is causing a bit of consternation as values fluctuate and are volatile as we have seen them in the last few months. So may I mean, no particular order, just maybe in terms of the alphabetical order of your names, may I start with Ashish to lead us into the creation of decacons in India?
So thank you, Shailesh Bhai. Thank you, Lieutenant General Aluwalia, Shri Vikesh Walia ji, Shri Vijay Chandok ji, Shri Parthasarthi ji, Chaturvedi ji, Shri Prabhu ji. It's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you. I think in some ways we should get impressed by the fast wealth creation that is happening across the world in specific sectors. And we need to be kind of appreciative of the fact why it is happening. It is happening because of the fact that the technology waves are coming faster and faster. So earlier, what used to happen over a period of 100 years is now happening in period of say 20 years or 10 years. And so the wealth that is created is basically by use of technology. And new technologies, they overpower the previous organizations, previous ecosystems, they change them fundamentally, and that's how the new wealth gets created. The newcomers end up doing things. That doesn't mean all of them will be successful. So we need to be acutely aware of the framework that the technology is here to stay. The companies may not be here to stay. And so that dilemma also we need to inform people. The second dilemma, I think, second conundrum is whoever markets more ends up getting known more and probably gets valued more. That doesn't mean they are basically going to be profitable, commensurate with their valuation that is coming. But whatever the case, I think the wealth creation, what I call that framework now, is called capitalism without capital. Earlier, you required a lot of money to set up plants, roads, ports, to create some money, you know. So you had capitalism, which means basically you required capital. And that's how the Marx and Lenin and Engel, if you recall, in 18th and 19th century, that's how the framework capitalism came about, that people who had money could make more money and people who had no money had no hope to make money. That entire ecosystem of capitalism versus proletariat, you know, bourgeois versus proletariat and things like that. I think today the world has moved away. So all our economics, all our theories, all our books that have been taught to us are in a way becoming irrelevant because of the way the technology is changing. And today people with no money, with little bit of brain and somebody else's money are able to create billions. Whether you have heard of Steve Jobs or even Bill Gates for that matter, although it's a slightly old story, but they all started in some garage. Even HP started in a garage, but even Larry Page and Sergey Brin of Google, they were students. They took money from some professors, and those professors have become billionaires by default. So why I'm telling you this is that the modern methodology, modern ways of doing things are basically the technological evolution is happening fast. Wealth gets created fast, and also wealth may get destroyed fast. So there are companies which are not able to cope. They might have been existing for 100 years, and they may not be able to cope now because of the onslaught of course, virus also, but to some extent due to the technology. And so we need to be basically aware of these things for us. What India needs to do, because if you do decacons or unicorns or any con for that matter, for me, I like the small young ones, startups, who actually don't get funded by anyone. Then BSC is there to get them funding, right? So for me, many of them will also become decacons or whatever you want to add them up into. But what is it that is required for that great amount of wealth creation that is coming? For me, the next 50 years will create wealth that has not been created in last 10,000 years in the world. That much of, because if you look at the industrial revolution created wealth in that 300, 400 years that was not created in 10,000 years before that. And similar amount, but with a higher speed. What could happen in industrial revolution 400 years is now going to happen in 50 years. And that is where basically what is it that the wealth creation in a society like ours going to happen? One thing is we have young population, technology orientation. We are the only large country with young population who are technology minded. China has become old. Japan is already old. Europe is old. America is old. Effectively, we are the only large country which is forward looking, young population, technology orientation. We will create, in my opinion, 25% wealth that is going to be created with 18% of world population. In industrial revolution, we were not even participating. We were not even spectators. We were slaves, right? And here we are starting with everyone else. And our population, by quirk of fate, is now ready to take on that challenge. And that's why that money, that wealth is going to be hugely created. Today, our total wealth is around $10 trillion as a country. If you take all buckets and bowls and jewelry and stock market and everything, it is totally $10 trillion. Out of which $3.5 trillion, $3.6 trillion is represented in BSE. More than 35%, 1 out of every 3 rupees is now what I call a matter of trust between different partners distributed across the world. They are investing into that promoter's theory, promoter story, that company story, saying that company will go up. And when the profit comes, I will get my share and the money will not be wasted. There's that much of confidence that 1 out of every 3 rupees Indians hold dearly as part of their wealth is coming out of the matter of trust. How do we become from $3.5 trillion today to $35 trillion over next 25, 30, 50 years? And that should be our aim. Of course, this decacons, and then later on, you will get decicons and whatever numbers, century cons and whatever numbers you want to give, you should give. But ultimately, this wealth will be created by coming to the market, listing, and for that, the role of independent directors, role of directors is going to be absolutely essential, because partners who has put in 1,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees in the companies, they are hoping that the the board of directors, which is guiding the management, is going to take care of their interest. And when wealth gets created, they will also be able to share equally into that, right? I think that is the mantra with which all our board members, and I think Institute of Directors is doing a yeoman's job in training the directors, giving them standards, telling them what to do when life will continue to go on without too many standards. But when in trouble, what to look for is what basically everyone needs to worry about. Disclosure standards. Disclosure is very important in the public market to maintain trust. Finally, what are we manufacturing as a market, as BSE or as a SEBI or Government of India or Ministry of Finance, and all of us as directors, everything what we do is basically what we call is manufacturing of trust. Trust is a very subtle thing, very difficult to build, very easy to destroy, right? And for me, that is why, and we are all, you, me, everyone, all aspiring directors, all company managements, we are all drinking out of that pond of trust. If you poison it a little bit, you are going to kill the entire village, And for me, that is why you must focus on ensuring that IOD specifically focuses on good governance. Of course, the ESG and other things will continue. It must continue. All the new expectations from all corporates are always going to be there. But effectively, that trust of the society in which we operate is what we must continue to build on. And each time the expectations are different. Many times, I mean, you have been there for now 50 years doing this sort of business of trust as auditors, as a chartered accountant. And 20 years back, it was difficult to get even annual reports. Today, quarterly reports you don't get, you are getting suspended, right? And for me, each era will expect more and more and different types of compliances, strategies, and the board has to be ready to move with that. And I think IOD is doing a good job of keeping people aware of what are the opportunities in front of them, but what also challenges, what are expectations of people from all of us. And I think for me, from BSE, which has been there for 147 years, which has basically acted as a catalyst for creating that $3.6 trillion of wealth. As a CEO of that, my request to everyone is don't look at short term. When in doubt, disclose. Anytime you have any type of worries, please disclose to the public, stakeholders, governments, anything, so that later on, nobody can tell that we were less in corporate governance or compliance. For me, when societies become more wealthy, why wealth comes is because of trust.
Absolutely, Ashish. That's a fantastic core message that you are giving to this wonderful summit. And so many messages you have given are long-term in nature. The idea of trust, the idea of disclosure, the idea of being stewards of other people's capital and protecting the minority, making sure that we continue along this path in an honest, sincere way for years and years. And thank you for letting us know that the market capitalization of our bosses has reached 3.6 trillion, which is a phenomenal size by any standards. And also the fact that you brought us interesting statistics about the breakup of wealth in our nation. What a fantastic keynote, Ashish. Thank you so much. We will have a lot of question answers a little later, but let me bring Partha into this debate because Partha has created multi-billion-dollar enterprises in his life, and he's again on the cusp of creating or being part of the journey of another decacorn which is about to emerge in our country. So Partha, you have been in extremely key and important positions all your life. And we would love to have your keynote on how we can continue along this path and give the messages to boards on what they should be looking for. Over to you, Partha. You're on mute, Partha. You're on mute.
Do you have the sharing, Mr. Parthasarathy?
Yes,
Yeah,
now
I have the sharing as well. Thank you. Now
you got the screen sharing. Okay, good.
Yeah. Thank you. Shailesh, thank you very much. And you did talk about me talking about many things that Ashish has talked about. And after coming and speaking after Ashish, it's like, sheesh nahi rahega. So all that which has to be said has already been said by Ashish. So speech is silence. I mean, maybe I should keep silent, but therefore I would venture not in his direction, but just a slightly digression. Shailesh, if you agree, I'll talk more about the digital side of things, yeah, and then bring that thing. But before that, some comments. What I see is climate change and e-commerce will force every business to change business model. Financial world has seen it, Automotive industry has seen it, but there is no industry which will not see this change. So it's going to happen. So I call it a CE. CE is here to stay. So what we need to add is the I in order to survive, which is innovation. So in innovation, because of innovation, we can overcome the challenges posed by climate change and experiential commerce. Yeah, e-commerce we have to change through experiential commerce, and climate change we have to imbibe. And when we do ICE, the companies which go through this path will become nice, because it will be the new normal where innovation will imbibe climate change and e-commerce as experiential commerce. Okay, so we want nice decacons to emerge in the future. Okay, not just decacons. I hope I'm clear still.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can hear you well.
Sorry, I just for a moment thought I was losing you, and I was not knowing which part of it is not working, mine or the other network. But thankfully both are working. The second point I wanted to make is pandemic is creating an acceleration of this force. It is not changing. It is creating an acceleration. What would have happened many years later? It's forcing it to be foreseen, and you have to challenge that today. And I think therefore it's a good thing in that sense that we are facing the challenge, which forces us to rethink the speed. And Ashish mentioned the speed at which we are changing. The third part is ESG. And one of the things about ESG, as I said, grow more say no more ho jaoge if you are not imbibing ESG. And why is that? Because it is no more a question of that quality and cost are not two different dimensions. In the past they were. Today it is quality and cost. So it is not ESG or profit. It is ESG and profit. Both are important. So, and I think this is the and has to add. Any business model which doesn't have this and will end. Anything which has this word and will become the nice industries of future. And I think this is an important thing which people are recognizing. It's not some hypothesis of mine, and people are recognizing and putting it as part of their business model, where they're taking care of the communities they're working. Governance is not a tick mark in a box, but it's the box in which the tick will be marked.
So fantastic alliteration.
Okay. The other thing, last thing which I say before I just do on the IT side, is our part of our problem is we talk about 3 Ps. And I think especially I would urge IOD and others to stop talking 3 Ps. Because when we put profit along with planet and people, we make the mistake of forgetting what is the means and what is the end. So I would urge a new concept called 2P plus 2P, where the end objective is only people and profit. So 2P, and the way to get the profit is, get that end objective is 2P, process of profit and process of governance. When you get the process of profit and governance right, you will meet the objectives of both the people and the planet. And that's the and that we need to bring in. Okay. So now let me go and share a thing, because sometimes what happens is we are not in a position to
we can see digital Sangamam.
Yeah, okay. So that's what I want to put on this. Okay. So basically, and I want to kind of put this up to you, that the digital Sangamam is what will make decacons of the future. And if I were to say about...
My name is Free Eyes.
Oh, I'm here talking about digital Sangamam to these people, and where have you come in? I hope, hi, Sailesh, you can hear these 3 eyes?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, so what are you, man? Why did you jump in?
There are 3 possible answers, sir. I am version 3.0 of the M-Drishti program you started. I try to provide 3 possible interpretations of all available data. I provide a little drishti about the state of your business. The third creative eye, the one with foresight.
Wow.
Oh.
If the future is going to be about foresight that you are going to create, man, what am I going to do? Okay, by the way, I mean, let's forget that. Tell me, I'm in the tractor business and John Deere is a big competitor. You say you have Drishti. Tell me about John Deere.
Competitor John Deere has increased the discounts in Maharashtra. Going by the past trends, I predict the market share will increase by 0.1% if they continue this for 3 months. Now, before you ask, I have received this input from the algorithm which captures competitor information.
Oh my God. So you're telling me I'm going to lose my shirt, my pant, and the Decocon degree if I don't do anything. But now you've told me the problem. Are you going to stop there?
Sir, I would prescribe the following. Increase the dealer sales incentive by 10% in Maharashtra. Focus more on dealers around Satara. That's where you will find maximum impact. Increase your salesmen in Nagpur. I am sending you a coverage analysis highlighting regions where they need to be deployed. Conduct BTL activities in regions around Nashik.
Wow.
Okay, so that is the future, ladies and gentlemen. And I will now stop sharing because I just wanted to give you a glimpse of what the future will look like with digital coming into our lives. It will not be that you will do some analysis through computers. There'll be predictive analytics. They will give you the 3 answers. This is Drishti 3.0 version of a thing where I'm at 2.0. And the 3.0 is not far off coming. And when it comes, it will give me all these solutions. So therefore, if you don't join this race, we'll be left behind. So my think that every Decocon who's and hopeful ones will be using this in good measure. And whether it is AI or whether it is robotics, whether it is, what is it called? Big data, or whether it is banking service, whatever you do, you will have digital as the backbone of what you do. And let me reconfirm and reiterate what Ashish said. That wealth will be created faster and larger than ever. And when wealth is created in that manner, the general GDP of the entire nations and the world goes up. And when it goes up on an average, everybody's life, lifestyle and the money that he has goes up. And as financial revolution has increased the money in everyone's pocket, this revolution will also increase. The key thing is we have to participate and grow along with it and not left behind in the race. So this is on the IT side. The other small question before I end that you asked, Sailesh, is the green companies. Okay. Yes. So I'm just saying in the future, any company which is not green will become a very difficult one to answer one simple question. Am I leaving behind for my son something worse than what I've inherited? And if I am doing, I don't think all the money we have earned is worth it. And this is a reality which is being faced more physically today. And with that, I will just hand over so that I don't overrun the time too much.
So nice, Partha. This was scintillating in the extreme. Last 2 days, I have been sharing with people the delivery that GPT-3 will give us, and you have given us a demonstration. GPT-3 is generative, pre-trained, transformative. And you have put together the outcome of GPT-3, which is going to morph into GPT-4. And Ray Kurzweil, who arguably is one of the most intelligent human beings alive today, says that we will reach human-level AI by 2029. And I happened to hear him in the metaverse. They'd actually created a metaverse for us in one of the communities, and they actually took us into it and made us listen to Ray Kurzweil right there live on the stage. And this is exactly what he said. So what you have done, Partha, is brought it down to the reality of India and the reality of all of us, that we can dream for a phenomenal future to come. And that is why we have a confident corporate India. Fantastic, Partha. Your alliterations are brilliant, as always. Such a pleasure to listen to you. Thank you. Vijay, we now turn to you. You have seen multiple decacons coming up right before your eyes. You have been sponsoring them, bringing them to market, teaching them what to do to really make it where they ought to be. And I have personally had great interactions with ICICI Securities all my career and have developed an extremely high regard for the work that you do. So we are looking forward to listening to you on the theme of this session and the theme of this summit. Over to you, Vijay.
Thank you very much, Shailesh ji. Thank you, General Ahluwalia. Thank you, Vijay ji, for having me represent us for today's event. It was really very nice to hear the distinguished fellow speakers prior to me, and I think, Partha, you have shown us that how antiquated we are. Thank you for that. It was really nice. Of course, Ashish, as usual, brought out some fantastic insights. So, making of a decacon. I think the topic is really, really topical and interesting, and therefore I thought, let me start. I wish I could interact with the audience, but that's possibly not doable right now. You know, the question that I wanted to ask is that this word, even before we go to decacon, unicorn, got drafted into the Indian financial lexicon, or I would say the global financial lexicon. When did that happen? And who did it? And when did it get done? Well, the answer is that it was drafted very recently. It was actually drafted in 2013, and it got drafted in US. At that point in time, if one were to ask how many unicorns existed in India, and I'm using unicorn not as in more in a startup sense, a company which achieves a $1 billion market cap valuation in the unlisted space, but more from the startup sense. I'm not referring to the LICs which always existed then. I'm referring to the other part, the startup versions. At that time, there were 0. Come 2021, the total number of unicorns in India actually swelled just in the year 2021 by 42 new unicorns getting added. And the total number of unicorns in the country actually swelled up to about more than 85. So half the unicorns just got added just last year, the fiscal year that ended.
Wow.
2021. And if you were to just take a head count of these 85 companies and look at what their potential market capitalization is, that number comes to a staggering close to $300 billion in terms of potential market cap sitting inside that. And these companies have so far raised a cumulative capital of close to $75 billion. So the numbers are really staggering. And these are unicorns. Now, while all these unicorns are getting sort of created in the economy, another word started getting coined, and that's the word of the topic today, decacon. As the word sort of implies, it means any company which is unlisted, achieving a $10 billion, 10 times a unicorn state sort of a market cap. So if I were to ask the question, how many decacons are there? Let me start by asking this question, how many decacons are there in the world? Well, as we speak today, give or take, the number is about 46. So there are only 46 decacons in the world today. Again, I'm referring to the unlisted startup, sort of arena, not old existing players. 5 of these are there in India. So a lot of action has been happening. And if you were to ask the question as to what really has led to this explosion and growth of value creation, that we have seen in the recent past, there are a few reasons, and I'll quickly go through those reasons to my mind. And this is, from what I would say an investment banker's perspective. I think the first reason that clearly we've seen creation of value is the entire Indian economic ecosystem itself has been very, very facilitated. It has been facilitated, and the potential is immense. And Ashish spoke at length about, the wealth creation that is going to happen. Partha gave that brilliant demo of how the world will change, and all that is going to be value created. But even when we look back over the last, let's say, decade or so, And I distinctly remember, 2010, 2011, I was running the global business for ICICI Bank back then. And one of the questions I asked myself is, where does India stand in the pecking order of large countries? I remember at that time, I think India, this is about 2009, 10, India was probably at about 11th or 12th slot in the ranking of GDP. And before you realize, and we always, we tend to be hard on ourselves when we assess, saying that how have we done really done well, and so on and so forth. But really just look at what's happened in the last 10 years. By 2020, by 2014, 15, somewhere in that ballpark, from the position slot of number 12 or 11, we leapfrog to position number 7. And what happened? We overtook during this period Brazil, Italy, South Korea, perhaps Canada, and I think even Russia. So number 12 to number 7. And this is by 2015, in just about 5 years. And thereafter, the next few years, if I'm not wrong, we actually went to a position of number 5, overtaking France and Britain in size of GDP. Perhaps after that, the pandemic did some bit of a pullback on our position. And as we speak today, we are number 6 in the pecking slot, just behind Britain. There's a very, very sliver of difference between us and Britain. The point that this seems to indicate is that we have done so much of this value creation that I spoke about happened because we did relatively much better than the rest of the large economies. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And as we look forward, I think there are number of drivers for growth to continue, and that is why the anticipation of this growth is leading to this excitement and value creation that we are beginning to see. So I think reason number 1, I would attribute it to our economy, and today as we look at the economy itself, we are seeing lots of interesting growth drivers, one of the principal ones being that young Indian population, the demographic profile. I think Ashish also indicated. The second point I felt really I can see, which is really driving this value creation, is the digital revolution. In the last few years, we've seen low-cost digital devices, easily accessible to lots and lots of people. In many ways, democratized access to mobile handsets. Second, low-cost data. Third, the entire digital stack that got created, the Aadhaar, the payment mechanisms, the regulations that are supporting them. Now, what has this done? This has democratized access. One of the biggest sort of hurdles to growth for entrepreneurs, apart from, of course, capital that Ashish spoke about, was also the ability and the simply sheer time required to create access to reach customers. I think this got completely redefined with this kind of a developmental change. The third is the shift in human behavior. I think we've seen that during pandemic, how human beings purchasing behavior, interacting behavior, getting influenced behavior, friend-making behavior has actually really transformed. It's, in a nutshell, becoming more online, more digital, more amenable to all the stuff that's really happened as an account of digital revolution. So the third is a shift in human behavior, and I believe that this shift is here to stay, perhaps increase only in the same direction going forward. The fourth is clearly the growth of, because of this human behavior shift, the growth of commercing, the e-commercing, travel online, and these numbers are again very, very large. Just these two businesses, e-commercing and traveling, the e-tailing and commercing, is about $60 billion, and in the next 3 years, probably expected to double. So behavior shift leading to change in way commerce is happening, and therefore democratized access getting possible for more and more people to come and harness. The fourth, I would say, aspect is complete unleashing of the entrepreneurial spirit of the country. It's no longer about someone who's wealthy creating wealth. It's not just that. I'm seeing wealth creation today knows no age. I see young billionaires and millionaires. I see middle-aged millionaires and billionaires. I see slightly more senior people, perhaps even the retired people, taking the plunge. So there is no age limit. You can actually become an entrepreneur at any age today.
Absolutely right.
I see that you don't have to be a male or a female. I see a number of women entrepreneurs doing extremely well. So no age, no background, no education. It's your sheer entrepreneurial spirit, your passion that's taking you through. And it is possible because of all these developments that are happening. All of this has meant that large amounts of money has come into the markets. Just in the last 2 years, we've seen that the private equity money that has gone in is about $57 billion this year. Previous year it was $40 billion. So large amounts of private equity money has happened, and it is getting supported very beautifully by the public money markets. And that's very important, because then you have an exit for the private investors. For this engine to keep going, I think this is very, very important. And capital markets, the public capital markets represented through Bombay Stock Exchange, other exchanges, has really given access for public participation into this wealth creation. And just $25 billion got raised amongst IPOs last year. It's already 22 billion in about 9 months or 10 months so far. So I'm sure with large issues planned, this money flow is going to only continue. So because of all these reasons, greater and greater amount of money has come. I'm going to just take one more aspect to dwell on this, because we at ICICI Securities have had the, I would say, honor and privilege of working with large number of entrepreneurs, young, medium age, so senior age, different types of people who have actually done value creation and have taken their company, their wealth, their efforts to the, markets by getting public investors into the fold. And we've had the privilege of working with many of them very closely. So there are about 7 points I just want to leave you as what really makes a hallmark of a winning decagon. The first very unique thread which ties up all the decagonians, if I can use that word, is that they are extremely passionate. They are extremely passionate about their cause, and they are very, very focused on customer experience. I think that is a thread that I've seen them always focus on. Whether you take the example of, use Nykaa, you take any payments company, it's so pleasurable and so easy and so convenient. Customer experience is very important for success. The second aspect that I've seen them focus on is solving a pain point of a consumer. So they have, most of these guys have not invented something dramatic. The earlier guys have invented a semiconductor, a chip, or something very dramatic. They have actually found a common pain point, and they have actually democratized it. Take the example of the taxi aggregators. Take the example of food ordering companies. They have not really created a semiconductor there. They have simply identified a pain point and solved it, and they created decagons out of that whole idea. So that's the second characteristic I've seen. They are extremely agile. So they start with a vision, they start with an idea, but they are not married to it. Agility is their hallmark. They keep evolving as market changes, as situations evolve, and they are not shy to fail and then remodel their businesses when they see changed environment. Fourth point I see about them is that they've really built strong teams, very, very strong teams, most competent people, and they don't shy away from attracting the best talent and really empowering these people to deliver and perform. The other aspect I've seen is that the decagonians specifically have chased large opportunities. Whether it is in savings or investment space, whether it is in e-tailing space, whether it's in gaming space, they've chosen a large opportunity. So it's important to become a decagon, that the space that you choose really has an ability to provide you that scale. The sixth point I've seen about them is that they are very patient. We often think and believe that the decagons have been all created, or unicorns have been all created in 3 years, 4 years. That's not true. That's not true at all. There is a lot of effort, there is a lot of toil, there is a lot of hard work and time that has gone behind it. Nykaa, for instance, has been around since 2010, 2011. It's almost a decade. Zerodha, which is another unicorn of sorts, has been around since 2008-9. So it's been more than a decade. So many of the companies that we hear of now as decacons, unicorns, and large cons are actually not creations of yesterday or day before, but they are actually spent a good amount of time reinventing themselves, failing, recreating, but being very patient. And the last point that I would like to, I've seen amongst these decaconians is that they invest in building relationships across, networks across, and they use that network very effectively, whether it is network of investors, whether it is network of, entrepreneurs with whom they do inorganic opportunities. And in both these areas, we provide access to them, getting them those networks going, inorganic growth, capital raises for their own, sort of growth plans organically, and of course, engaging with investors, engaging with the prospective investors with their businesses, explaining, taking painstaking time to explain so that they are able to actually get them into their fold as and when the time is right. So lots of time is spent in that, and the fruits of this eventually is what we all call a deco. So I'm going to conclude and
Fabulous, Vijay. What a great vibgyor presentation. 7 colors of the rainbow of decacons. It's absolutely amazing the way you created the word picture, which can lead to a decacon being created. So we have now actually 3 questions, one for each one of you, and I'll start with Partha. Partha, the question for you is, how can boards enhance or take charge of the predictive capability of AI to enhance their own functioning? Mute. You're, please.
So whoever asked that question, many thanks. Because this is the right question to ask, for us to kind of then start by saying, are we using digital to our benefit or not? So when the board asks the question, how can predictive analytics help me? Then there'll be plethora of answers. I'll give you, like Vijay gave you vibgyor, 7 colors of success. I'll give you some flavors or some colors. Okay. But the usage is exponential. It can be anything. Your imagination will be the limiting factor, not what predictive analytics and big data and everything can give. Let's, for example, take the audit committee. They are saying compliance is there is a set compliance is compulsory, governance is the gospel. Yeah, so this is the thing. Now, if you look at what analytics can do, it can tell you where the compliance is 100%, but it can also crawl through your entire infrastructure to point out where are the things which are not seemingly okay. Bad debts before they come, frauds before they happen. And these are all the matters audit committee can do. All interrelated party, which you find it so difficult, will be able to be crawled by, and they will give you, connected parties transaction as they occur, and they can also tell you whether they are arm's length and ordinary course. So the audit committee can use predictive analytics and not wait, because this will be real time. They don't have to be in a boardroom. They can sit wherever. Shailesh can sit and be very happy that today audit I have control of, because it is coming to me as it is going to happen, not after it has happened. Okay, so that's one example. Look at the relationship committee, the stakeholder relationship committee. If they start getting what is not going right and coming from outside in, nowadays CEOs are going to social media. So because they get bad news faster there than they get from their own companies and executives. Think about if an artificial intelligence is going out there and gathering all this information and making intelligence out of it. What powerful tool it gives the shareholder committee. Just 2 examples, because if I go on, then Shailesh will say I didn't get a chance to ask others questions.
Correct.
But this is the power. And
Wonderful, Partha. Beautifully illustrated. Your answer was, as always, very, very insightful. Vijay, the question to you is that do we have the right set of independent directors in India to actually do the governance that can lead to the vibgyor of decacons that you talked about? Bimal Bhatt has asked two questions, but this one I will target to you, and the last one I'll target to Ashish. So that's your question, Vijay, whether we have the right set of independent directors to drive this process.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think certainly it's a skill, it's a capability, it's a presence which I do find very much there, the supply of such directors in India. Because see, at the end of the day, entrepreneurs look for wisdom. They look for they look for bringing organized. They look for someone who can bring governance, sort of overlays, who can get them necessary networks and connections into things that are important from a business point of view, and not necessarily just from growth of business, but I think other aspects of business, including getting the right kind of skill sets into the company, including getting the right kinds of controls into the company, and things like that, which is very much the domain, I would say, of independent directors, even who are working for more mature companies who are already sort of there in some of the more other companies. So I don't see that aspect very different. What I really see a little different is perhaps the absence of too much of structures in a more settled company, in a more senior company in terms of age. The structures, control mechanisms, the experience of failure, etc., is probably seen much more. That element is sort of a little lower here. Ambition is very high because it's largely a promoter-driven company. So that's another angle of difference. The level of passion that one sees from a professional setup versus a passion that he sees from an entrepreneurial-led can be quite different. So those are angles and elements which are different that we find, but pretty much I think I don't see independent directors not being made available for such.
Thank you, Vijay. That was a very strong vote in favor of the fact that India has the sufficient number and quality of independent directors. I'll move to the other question of Bimal Bhatt for Ashish. Ashish, what Bimal Bhai is asking is that if you look at the top 250 companies of India, maybe all that we are talking about around this table is applicable. But what about the large mass of listed companies, which overall number the largest number of listed entities in the whole world on any exchange? So how do we percolate the lessons that we are now speaking about to these listed entities? That's the question for you, Ashish.
I think IOD is doing a good job.
Thank you.
Right. So for me, I think we have a tendency to feel that whatever India is doing is not sufficient, or the rest of the world might be doing exceedingly well compared to us because they are rich, and we get impressed by rich people. All rich people don't have to be smart, nor they have to be correct, nor wise. It is just that sometimes they have inherited the richness, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they are lucky. Similarly, societies also, rich societies, also have similar issues. Many of them are becoming, in a way, dysfunctional. And you can see it in Canada and wherever just now, right? So for me, one advice I would have for all our investors and also citizens is that whatever we are, I think we are a very, very coherent society, right? And so I would not say that we have only 250 companies being compliant. For me, I have literally the largest number of companies in the world listed on BSE. Okay?
Correct.
There is no other exchange, and all of them are compliant. If they are not, they get suspended. So effectively, what has happened is over last 25 years since SEBI has come into play, one of the things I have seen, and I think you would also agree with that,
Absolutely.
is that SEBI has basically started taking all the best practices in the world, which you would get after appointing McKinsey and Booz Allen Hamilton and all those people, as part of the regulations. So if you list free of cost, you have to comply. You get the best practices as regulations. So
Best practice is free.
and you have to comply. You don't have a choice, right? So
Correct.
effectively,
Correct.
India is now basically the most compliant country in terms of the stock markets in the world. Because of that, and it's actually good because even young companies, 1 crore, people who have raised even 1 crore, 1 crore, you don't get even a 2 BHK flat in Mira Road in Mumbai.
Correct.
They have raised 1 crore and they are still compliant.
Correct.
They are young children, literally kindergarten children are also getting trained to act responsibly, right? And for me,
fabulous.
Right. And so for me, it is very important that young companies are selecting to list. They are not afraid of being compliant. And Indian compliances are, in a way, the most stringent. And still, more and more companies are coming every day, from startup to SMEs to main board. And that is the beauty of India, that we are basically a very, very compliant country on every aspect of it. And as far as somebody is watching, which SEBI and exchanges are, then I think we will be compliant. So effectively, don't think that you will be left alone. For me,
what a great
I think somebody said also that I think Mr. Patsadi said, compliance is not a choice.
Correct.
Right? It is to be done.
And
and many times I tell my companies, try being non-compliant.
We'll catch you.
You cannot be non-compliant today with SEBI, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, everyone watching you. And of course, exchanges. Don't try to be non-compliant. Those days are over, boss.
Absolutely.
Today, India is new India, and let us sort of go with that confidence.
Yes.
That we will be the best country in compliance going forward.
I mean, what better end of this session could we have than what Ashish just said? We are a confident India, confident corporate India, compliant corporate India. Vijay says that we are entrepreneurial. We can produce many, many more decacons. And Partha gives us a vision of what the future holds for us. Thank you all very much. This has been one of the most spectacular sessions that I've had the privilege of being part of. And to each one of you, very deep gratitude for all your thoughts, your vision, your insights, and your advice. Thank you, Vijay. Back to you at sharp 4:30.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Haribhakti, and the three decacons here. Thank you, Ashish ji. Thank you, Parsati ji, and thank you, Vijay Chandok ji, for a very, very interesting and lively session. Very interesting points have been raised, and I think there's going to be a good takeaway for all our participants. We sincerely appreciate your time and content on this topic. So we move now. Thank you so much, everyone. We now move to some videos and messages from our sponsors. We sincerely acknowledge the contribution of our sponsors for the success of this conference: Life Insurance Corporation of India, Institute of Management Accountants, and Larsen and Toubro Limited. There is another small announcement that Ms. Sherry from New York is unable to join due to some medical emergency, and instead is being joined by CMA and Global Board Member of Institute of Management Accountants, Mr. Jayavardhan. Mr. Jay will be joining us in her place. So Ravi, would you kindly play some Mr. Jayavardhan Sembal will be joining us in her place in the next session. And Ravi, can you please play some video quickly for a minute or so? We have to start by 4:30, the next session. Time to start the next session, or we have a video? Okay. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your continuity here. We now move to our second panel discussion. The second panel discussion is about actioning ESG. As I had mentioned earlier in the beginning itself, that ESG has been through the long journey of think tanks, global conferences for many years, moving to regulatory mandates now, and now becoming part of corporate annual reports as well. Finally, the time has arrived to focus on actioning ESG. Many companies have started linking executive pay to ESG performance, and hence ESG is becoming top priority, not only with the institutional investors, but now with the retail investors as well. The consumer also wants to relate with ESG brands. When Colgate goes paper carton free, the consumer instantly endorses Colgate as her brand. Our invitee speakers for this session includes the chair of the session, Mr. Santosh Jairam, Global Head Sustainability at HCL Technologies Limited, one of the largest global IT companies in the world. Mr. Jairam is an IIT Bombay alumnus, did his degree in environment science and engineering when ESG was not much on the horizons. So he had the far sight for the future that yes, environment is the future. Prior to HCL Technologies, he was advisory council member of KPMG Impact, a global program on ESG. He created a huge team in Asia, and this practice was a flourishing practice at KPMG under his leadership. Mr. Jaraman is the person to go to in India on ESG strategy and actioning both. We welcome Mr. Santosh Jayaram. Now we welcome our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. Jayavardhan Semwal, Vice President, Financial Accounting from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. He is a CMA from Institute of Management Accountants, and he's also on the global board of Institute of Management Accountants. So he's very much part of IMA in more than one way. Jay has served as Vice President Corporate Financial Accounting for HPE for over 5 years now. He has been with HPE for 12 years and has worked various areas of revenue management, supply chain, finance, expense management, etc. Prior to joining HPE, he worked at best of the global MNCs, including GE Capital, Prudential Financial, ICICI Bank, and Fiat SPA. He has more than 20 years experience in the areas of automotive design, corporate finance, business finance, financial markets, international banking, FP&A and R, accounting and analytics. Jay holds a B in mechanical engineering from NITI, India, and an international graduate degree in automobile engineering from ISVR, Fiat, Italy, an MBA finance from Acceleri, Jamshedpur. He holds a diploma in Italian language, of course, having spent so much time in Italy, the best language to pick up. Jay currently serves as member of the IMA's Strategic Planning Standing Board Committee, and very warm welcome to Mr. Jay Semwal. A hearty welcome to our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. Anup Sahai. He is the head of corporate strategy and special initiatives at Larsen & Toubro Limited. Mr. Sahai currently heads the head corporate strategy and special initiatives for Larsen & Toubro. What better than strategy to take lead on ESG? ESG alone cannot do much if it is not integral part of the strategy. I'm so happy that it is like that at Larsen & Toubro. In addition, he has oversight of corporate sustainability, corporate brand management, and communication. Mr. Sahai is also guiding the development of new business in the B2B supply chain space for L&T. He has been with L&T since August 18, and before that, he was at Tata Steel for good 32 years in various roles, acquiring rich experience in corporate strategy, marketing, business planning, and sustainability. He led formation of JVs with Blue Scope Steel Australia for Tisco, and also headed the integration office subsequent to acquisition of Chorus by Tata Steel. Mr. Sahai has done a graduation in economic honors from Delhi University and has done his PGDBM from IIM Ahmedabad. In 1984, he has also done EDP programs in business management from CEDP, Fontainebleau, France, and we heartily welcome Mr. Sahai, and I would request Mr. Santosh Jayaram to lead the discussion on this, and we look forward to an interesting session. Santosh, please, all yours.
Thank you, Yogesh. Sorry, I will, thanks to you as well as IOD for inviting me to do this session, and thanks to the other two panel members to have joined over here. Please excuse me, I will keep on doing this clearing of my throat. I'm just coming out of my COVID infection, so it still continues. So please bear with me on that. And so I think should congratulate you guys to kind of bring this topic into the discussion into a confident India, right? So I think it's a very important topic. As you can see, you yourself mentioned, Vikesh, as to how it is becoming a big regulatory driver as well right now. But I should say that 2021, one of the key things which, as a practitioner and somebody would have noticed it, is the big watershed moment which happened with the proxy activism around ESG. I don't think many people in India would have observed this, but the way the things are changing around the world in terms of the proxy activism in ESG should be a big warning signal to the boards of India. And the board members are being changed because of this activism. You have the CEO pay being stalled because of this activism. You have the shareholders deciding what the company would report on ESG, with more than 80% vote on in some of the companies. So you can really see, and even investors like the Blackstone supporting some of these kind of movements is kind of something which happened in 2021. And I think it was only 2 weeks back, Glass Lewis announced that they are coming out with an ESG rating only to educate the investors. And so yes, it's we have seen the money chasing the ESG. We have seen the investors talking about it. We have seen the regulators talking about it. Now the proxy activism is in the big way. So I think it's something to kind of really change the landscape. And I would start with that by looking into, all said and done, it is an important thing, and it has walked into the boardroom. Now, actioning on it, how do we go about? So let me, what we'll do is that each of the 3 members of the panel will take about 5 to 6 minutes to kind of put our thoughts around the actioning of the ESG, and then we can look into some of the questions which would come up either in the chat box, or maybe I can kind of moderate some of the questions from the other panel members as well. So I'll go first in terms of looking into, I would say, 6 key factors to really action the ESG. I was a little, the way the earlier panel happened and the 7 rainbow colors and all those kind of things came in. So I thought I will also structure my discussion in bullet points. So 6 things I would say I would consider in actioning on ESG. The first one is a very cliche, right? I mean, tone at the top. We for many things we will say that, but tone at the top, even though it's a cliche, it is one of the key things which is important. I'll give you an example. In December 2021, I did an analysis of the Indian companies on the ESG ratings at that time available. And I should say that the average score of the IT sector, the services sector company, topped across all the other sectors. This sector is clearly the flag bearer in India when it comes to the ESG ratings. And so when you look at analyze what can be the drivers and some of those kind of things, I see a common factor, which is the legacy set by the founders. You look at all the top IT companies, you will find it's kind of similar. And I can take the example of HCL. For example, Roshni, chairperson. Many of you wouldn't know that she is the founder of the Habitat Trust, which works on the protection of critically endangered species. Many of you know about the Shivanada Foundation, which does quite a big work on the space of education and all. Of course, the HCL Foundation is the CSR arm, but I'm talking about the founders side. So the first drivers I would say is the culture, the leadership sets, and that's kind of the very important, and that drives or that helps in kind of action ESG across the organization in a big manner. It's how it has been set inside a particular organization. The second one is the governance structures. It's very important that the right kind of governance structures are there in the organization. Today, if you look at many of the Indian companies have an ESG committee of the board. And so for us in HCL, we also have an ESG committee of the board. Robin Abrams, our independent director, she leads the ESG committee, and Simon, who is the independent director, as well as our chairperson. Three of them form part of the committee, and it's right at the top. That structure is there, and below that we have the core team. We integrate ESG into various divisions, various functions, and all those kind of things. We also have a leadership working group which looks into it. So the right kind of governance structures need to be in place for you to action ESG. Third one is embedding that sense of purpose within the organization. 180,000 people in HCL, if I can align everyone towards that common goals and all those kind of things, that itself is a big thing, right? And so how do you align everyone, the organization, to kind of move into that particular direction? So I think that's where the clarity of visioning, clarity in terms of how you set the goals and all those kind of things come in place. So we looked at it as to what would be the best way to kind of look at what should be the philosophy around ESG for HCL. The first one is everyone has to play their role. And when we talk about impact, the impact starts with us, right? As an individual or as an organization. So we said that as HCL, we will take care that whatever ways we work with, we will be working in a responsible manner. We will use the resources in the right kind of manner. And but then the impact what you create alone is limited. There is a bigger impact which you can create with stakeholders around you, whether it is the partners, clients, or whether it is the community around you, the kind of impact which you can create. So we said that our philosophy around ESG would be simple: act, pact, and impact. Act is, yes, we understand it starts with us, we act. Pact is what we set it out rolling with our stakeholders. We will work with the stakeholders, collaborative manner, that's a pact, and together creating the sustainable impact. So the third one is, how do you create that embedding sense of purpose so that people are aligned towards a common direction? The fourth one is measuring the effectiveness of ESG. Very clearly, the right metrics, the right kind of, we call in the ESG parlance, we call it as the material topics and all those things. So right material topics identified, the right kind of matrices you need to monitor to kind of give that direction as to how as an organization you are progressing in this particular direction. So we have defined 12 material topics in HCL, and those 12 material topics are supported by what we call as 100 metrics. And this 100 metrics is what defines our progression inside HCL as to how we will be progressing on this. The fifth one, I would say, reporting with transparency. And when I talk about reporting with transparency, again, I would say this sector in India leads the pack when it comes to the transparent reporting, because you will find almost all the IT services leaders right there in terms of the way they report on many topics. And the reporting also aids in improvement or continuous improvement, because the moment you put out your goal, the moment you put out how you fared in a trend chart the last 3 years, that's a pressure built upon yourself to show that next year you will progress, because what you have done in the past has already been communicated over there, and then the next year you need to show progress around it. So the transparent reporting itself is a pressure to improve yourself. So I think reporting with transparency would be the fifth lever, which I would say on actioning ESG. And the last one, the sixth one, I would say is establishing that feedback loop with the stakeholders. And that's very critical, because when it's all about that value creation along with the stakeholders. And for that, whatever you are doing, is it going in the right direction? Is it meeting those requirements? That requires that constant feedback loop which you create. So whether it is with the investors, whether it is with the employees, whether it is with your partners, with your clients, or with the community, you constantly need to have that feedback loop functioning for you. And that would help you to kind of revisit your actions and sharpen your actions. And so I think these 6 elements or 6 kind of factors, I would say, are the key things for actioning on ESG. I said the tone at the top, although a cliche, but that's important. Aligning with the governance, the right governance structure. 2, embedding the sense of purpose. Number 3, measuring the effectiveness. Number 4, reporting with transparency. Number 5, and establishing the feedback loop as number 6. So I'll stop there, and maybe what we, and thank you because for putting together a wonderful panel, because as you mentioned, I have done nothing but sustainability or ESG throughout my professional career, but we have people like Jay who come with a very varied background, an engineer, an automobile engineer, then a master's in finance, and then as part of the IMA strategic planning. So I think a good panel, and then you have Anup who comes as the head of strategy with one of the top Indian companies, and so wonderful panel to take forward this discussion. So maybe I can start with you, Jay, first, and then go to Anup. Jay, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Santosh. I think really you nailed it down. Act, fact, and impact. I think that's all it is about. And also you touched a bit on my background being engineer. I have got Anup here. I must admit that I am also from Larsen & Toubro. That was my first company. I was a graduate engineer trainee long time back. So I may be here on behalf of IMA today, but I think I do have a strong connect with Larsen & Toubro, and really felt happy about that Green Planet ad that came out. And what reminded me, Santosh, to your point, this entire proximism around or proxy activism around ESG, right? I remember I was giving a talk in Christ University, Bangalore. That was in January of 2020. And it was on ESG. And one of the things that I was telling the group, though I think coronavirus was starting, but I also never dreamt that it will land us where we are now. I was telling the group that ESG is going to be very, very paramount. Things will change, and things will change really, really fast. And when I'm sitting here with you all, we are already 2 years into this pandemic. And what I have seen, Santosh, to your point, tremendous amount of thrust around this entire concept of ESG. I'm the accounting guy for HPE, and I do see that for my enterprise. Right? There's a tremendous amount of thrust on our playing the responsible role to ensure that we are taking a lead. So be it committing to our reducing our carbon footprint, because we are a more product driven company, and all our products they are carbon based, right? And then we do you consume whole lot of energy. So be it committing on our carbon footprint reduction, be it committing on our electricity consumption, be coming out with smart, innovative server design, which are more, I would say, climate friendly. I think I do see that, and I do see that coming very, very fast. To your point, Santosh, again, from a reporting perspective, I am the guy who keeps the company honest, right? We accountants are gatekeeper for a transparency of the company, and we do see that entire need of sustainability accounting coming to us very thick and fast. And I personally feel happy that we as a country are already trying to lead in that direction. If you ask me, I speak to a lot of my fellow colleagues who are, my role is more global in nature, but I do speak to a lot of my colleagues who are CFOs of Indian conglomerate. Some of them are big IT companies, and I know what they are trying to do. So we're also already trying to, and you are there, Santosh, from one of the leading IT companies in the world. And I really feel happy that SCL has got your kind of a role, which I think is such a futuristic thing that SCL is doing.
Yeah, there is a request.
And
Jay,
you spoke about my
Jay, sorry to interrupt you. There is a request
Yeah,
for
Vijay.
your video focus. Your video is slightly blurred. If you could just refocus, thank you.
Yeah, is it any better?
Not yet.
Let me try this. Vikesh, you tell me if this works.
This is the best. Let's go ahead with it.
Yeah, let me try something. You tell me if this is better. Is it any better?
Little better, yeah. Little better, yeah. This is getting better. Yeah. Okay.
Shall I continue, Vikesh? Sorry,
Yes,
maybe
yes,
this is the
yes.
best I
Please,
can do
please,
today.
please.
My apologies.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. So Santosh, you're talking about my engineering background, and I do remember when I was doing my mechanical engineering, internet was just around, and I was thinking my fellow classmates in computer engineering, they were playing with these Yahoo, Google. Google was not the Yahoo and email thing, and I even then I did not dream that internet will become so big as we are talking. This current seminar is a great example of that. Right? None of this would have been possible without the technology or without the technology that internet brought in. I have a belief, Santosh, that and my fellow colleagues on this forum, that ESG will be what internet today, or with a comparison maybe 5 to 10 years from now. I would have made a kind of a timeline of 15 to 20 years when I was talking to Christ University 2 years back. But I know pandemic is going to thrust ESG, accelerate ESG, and it will become kind of a must-have for all the enterprises across the globe. And I believe there would be two broad drivers to that. There would be certain internal drivers. You spoke about some of those from an SCL perspective, Santosh, and creating that culture, right? And I think all these things many a time can be our strategy around managing the risk, being more resilient towards our societies. Sometime what we have seen that sustainable products also give us greater efficiencies. Believe it or not, when HP is working on reducing its carbon footprint, when we are working on creating more efficient server, what we have realized that this is creating that inherent efficiency within our system. And definitely some of these things are kind of encouraging more innovation within our ecosystem. But also there would be a whole lot of external driver. We have got lots of peer pressure, right? We are a IT technology company. We know all our peers are moving in the same direction. The entire pandemic has only given it more pressure. So we have got tremendous amount of peer pressure. And there is tremendous amount of pressure from investors, markets. There are more stringent disclosure norms. Santosh, in a very nice way, already touched upon that. Proxy activism is happening today, which tomorrow will become the real need. And then we have got a whole lot of things happening from a policy maker's perspective, because everybody is trying to look at making this planet more sustainable. Everybody is trying to see how we can create what we are calling a more circular economy. What do we mean by circular economy? If we can more and more reuse, recycle, maybe we create lesser burden on our planet, because our resources are limited. We all know that. And I think my last thought for today, being a management accountant, is we management accountant, we have a responsibility, and we believe that we have a role to play. And to your point, Santosh, on your first part, act. I think we are the one who may have to take that ownership on ensuring that we have the right kind of accounting strategies, we have the right kind of accounting support to our business leaders so that they can act upon the entire ESG priority that they may have. It can be as simple as being able to calculate the likely cost of carbon emission. Because in the end, as a business leader, and I think Anup is from strategy, as a strategy leader, he would want to know the cost benefit impact of this entire strategy. If we as management accountant can provide that, if we can analyze, let's say, a renewable energy contract and provide that foresight to our business leader, that is going to really help a lot. The other thing we can do from a management accounting perspective is promoting our profession. Because in the end, we all believe in our profession, and our profession must commit to trust, excellence, and transparency. I believe transparency also is a big role to play in making this entire thing, our planet, more sustainable, creating that sustainability accounting framework. We also can ensure that we work with our regulatory bodies and ensure that we can provide our regulatory bodies that thought leadership, because we having a strategy is very good, but unless that strategy gets acted upon, and once it gets acted upon, if we are not able to measure the impact, then again it is not very sustainable. So as management accountant, we believe that we can play a massive role in ensuring that we can provide right kind of insights as far as sustainable accounting goes to our business leaders, and kind of encourage them, business, and the entire world at large towards what we call sustainability, and also aligning that with I am here on behalf of IMA. IMA is a huge propagator of this entire sustainability accounting concept. We believe that it will help us build value, it will help us promote trust. But in the end, I leave it here to your first point, Santosh. Act. I think act. Facilitating action is the most important thing at this point of time, and that is where we are thriving towards. So I will end my thoughts here. Santosh, once again, Santosh, Vikesh, thank you so much for providing this great opportunity. This topic is very close to my heart. So I'm very happy that Sherry dropped out and I got this chance. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And I think you are right. The management according fraternity has a big role to play. It's all about efficiency, right? Whether you call it by circular economy or whether you call it by carbon efficiency, everything is about the real way, the efficient manner of conducting business. So I think the whole of ESG is also about that. So thank you very much and bringing out the role of the management accounting fraternity into this. Anup, over to you.
Thank you, Santosh. Good afternoon to all the listeners and participants on this panel discussion. Very interesting listening to you, Santosh, enunciating the 6 principles of what is behind successful actioning of ESG. And in my mind, I was playing through what are the various things that we are doing in L&T and does it reflect that? And I thought, yes, it does most of it. And thank you, Ajay, also about bringing in the role of the management accounting function. And I think we have a good involvement of that in L&T. Also, we have made a start, I would say, last year. A number of changes we have done in the recent past, in the last 8 to 10 months. And that was when I got involved in this ESG activities and setting long-term goals for ESG for L&T, which was around a year and a half ago. And sometime around 8 or 10 months ago, at an apex level, we set up a Green Campus Committee, as we called it, headed by one of our executive directors who is in charge of energy businesses in the company. The CEO also participates in the apex meeting. It has a number of other directors and a number of other people from across the line. So the ESG goals and targets, particularly on the environment side, which is a big challenge for L&T, and I'll come to that, why I want to focus on this aspect of ESG for a company like L&T. But here to take things to a different level, there was a complete integration of, or an integrated way of working between business units or the people at an executive level heading the line function, so to say, and the ESG fraternity. And in fact, the target for where we want to be in terms of, for example, carbon neutrality or water neutrality over a period of time, and what are the various actions and things that need to be done to get there. So all that was decided in an integrated way between business and between the ESG fraternity. So it's one team sort of working together. Of course, a lot of the facilitation and bringing in the best practices and the know-how and from the external world and all the frameworks and compliance requirements, etc. So over there, the ESG takes the lead along with the corporate finance, because they are at the front end, all the BRSR and the SEBI guidelines and what all is required from there. But it is a integrated way of working, and for me, it has been very exhilarating in the last 6 to 8 months to get deeply involved in this whole process. So therefore, when I was asked that whether I could join the session, I thought, yes, why not? I mean, I have learned so much in the process in the last 8 months. And though we have a very competent head of corporate sustainability, he's a domain expert, spent a couple of decades in this area. But I thought, let me bring in the perspective of how business can work in an integrated way with people from the ESG function. So this is my view of how things are happening in L&T as far as the ESG journey is concerned, particularly how we are trying to move to the next level in the last 8 months or so. Now, at a group level, just some context as to what L&T is about for those not very familiar. So very quickly, at a group level, we are at around 20 billion in terms of turnover, $20 billion terms, of which 70% of the revenue comes from our EPC business, which is essentially the construction business related to infrastructure, and some parts, and to some extent also in manufacturing. IT and digital businesses account for around 20% of our revenue, and 10% is financial services and a few other small, very small businesses. So now the other part of the context is that there is a strong desire for growth. We are in a developing economy. The government is spending a lot more on infrastructure development of the country. We have seen that in the last previous year's budget and this year's budget, and the expectation is that will continue. So why will L&T not grow? It will grow. But when a company like L&T grows and it has a significant impact on the environment, so then that becomes a big challenge, and that has to be addressed. And we were looking to see how we could become carbon neutral and net zero as early as possible, and without compromising on our growth ambitions. So therefore, we decided that we will work together, developing our 5-year plan for the business. Timing-wise, this panel discussion is also appropriate because we are just coming to the end of our 5-year planning cycle for both the business, and this time we are doing it for the business and for our environment and the social factors, everything all together. So it's the right timing from that point of view. A lot of work has been going on in the last 6 months to bring all this together. The challenges for L&T, the parent company, which is in infra construction, etc., and which is the biggest chunk of our revenue, and which is also going to grow in a significant way, is that, for example, in India, we operate in something like over 800 project sites in construction. And these sites also keep changing every 1 to 2 years as the project gets over and some new customer order comes. There are something like 27,000 pieces of equipment of various sizes, small, big, very big, and so on, and they all consume energy. And if you consume energy, and if it is coming from a fossil source, so there's an impact on the environment. So what do we do? So that is one part of the challenge. Then we employ something like around, at any point of time, around leaving aside the COVID period, something like 200,000 to 220 or 230,000 workforce across all our project sites. So the moment you have so many people, there are aspects of their health and safety and so on. And therefore, for governance, it's also a big sort of a subject as to how do we ensure consistency in our approach across all our business verticals. There are a number of business verticals which comprise this 14 billion. It's not one business, and they all operate in their own way, in their own functions, and we are trying to bring some kind of a uniformity and alignment. And how do we ensure alignment of all these businesses to the overall corporate commitments for climate action? And also, how do we set up a framework for sharing and learning across the business verticals? So all this has been set up, I would say, more in the last 6 to 8 months through this initiative of having this apex level Green Campus Council. One of the first things that was done was to spend time in working out if we are going to grow the way we want to grow across our different businesses and the mix of different verticals within infra and construction, and they have varying rates of energy impact and water impact and all. Then till what point of time will the absolute level of emissions and things like that keep increasing, and from where can we start to arrest it, and what all needs to be done to bring it down? So a lot of iterations, projections, scenario development, etc. was done, and then finally, after a number of discussions with the top management, we have decided that, and we announced it in October, for those who noticed it, that we will be carbon neutral in the year 2040, and we'll be water neutral in the year 2035. This is for the EPC part of the business. The IT businesses, they will be 10 years ahead of us. By 2030, they will be carbon neutral. We did this exercise joint for all the companies across the group. We thought when we are doing it, we will do it for everyone. So everyone participated in this huge exercise. And now, having done that, so a number of governance structures, etc., have been rolled out, which Santosh was talking of. That is absolutely essential. So the detailed planning and the execution that is being done by the 9 different business verticals who operate like independent companies. They are called independent companies, ICs. They have their own board with 3 external members on each of the companies, each of the ICs boards, and our own internal members as well. And it is chaired, each of these internal companies or independent companies, by one of the independent directors on the L&T parent company. So that is the structure we have. Therefore, the detailed planning and execution is handled by the respective business units, let us say. But we have also created, as part of the governance, a horizontal kind of a support structure for them. which is focused on the key routes that we are taking for attaining neutrality for carbon and for water. So which is around energy efficiency improvement is one of the horizontals. The other one is on use of renewables. The third one is on water efficiency, so that we become water neutral through various approaches in a certain period of time. And the fourth one is on tree plantation, because we realize that we could abate up to 90% over the next 10 years, 15 years or so. That is the level we would reach. But the balance 10% would still be left. And for that, we felt that we should do a tree plantation. It is nothing new, because we are already doing on an average 1 million trees per year over the last 3 to 4 years. And so we will continue at that same pace and maybe try to increase it by another 20% or 30% in the initial years. So that was this is the way we are trying to approach going to the next level as far as the ESG is concerned in the L&T parent. There are a number of nuances behind this. There are a number of approaches for achieving the neutrality. But maybe I will stop here. I'll just say that it is a highly integrated effort across the company with the involvement of the financial leaders. They have recognized that yes, there may be some investment to be done if we want to get those efficiency numbers in our energy consumption. There's also a view that there will be a payback for many of these investments, because if you reduce consumption, you're going to save on cost and improve productivity of the various equipment. That is one of the ways to get energy efficiency improvements. So that understanding is also there. The payback period for some of these things may be a little bit longer, but all that is being considered and taken on board. So this is where we are in terms of our approach at a very high level. I stop here. I will provide more clarity as going by what are the nature of questions. Thank you.
I don't see any questions there. So if any of the participants have some questions, you can put those questions into the Q&A box. But in the meantime, I would ask both of you a thing. I mean, I started the day, usually I have a small section called Friday Musings, which I do. And today morning I got up and said that the whole ESG risk, and my thought process was preparing for this session as well. The whole ESG risk, I was thinking, is from an organization's perspective, is it a tailwind or is it a headwind?
Maybe sorry, please go ahead, Anup.
Okay, sorry. Okay, fine. Yeah, I think it is both. See, I'll tell you, we started off by, I'll give examples of both. When you look at our next 5 years, there are some challenges which we face in our strategy from a business perspective. And this is not coming to a tailwind which impacts some of our businesses, which is, for example, in the thermal power EPC business. So there are clear tailwinds. That business cannot continue because you know what's happening to the thermal power business outlook in the coming years and decades. So therefore, but at the same time, the same set of people, they have got very active in exploring new options or getting into green energy areas. And it is the same team now, strengthened with a few more persons who are more knowledgeable, that is now looking into, for example, a play in green hydrogen, into storage battery. And it is understood that some of the facilities and premises can be used for this activity, that is producing electrolyzers for the green hydrogen opportunity, which is going to come up. And they are working out actively as we speak in discussions with the various partners for technology access and things like that globally. One of them was announced some time back at a MAU level right now. But like that, there are other discussions also going on. So this impetus has come because a business unit knows that it cannot go on one route. That route is coming to a halt very soon. And they have sort of themselves come up with this idea that why don't we do all these things? Why don't we get into green hydrogen? Why don't we get into storage battery and fuel cells and things like that? So we are actively exploring that. So it is an opportunity.
Yeah, and isn't it real that in many of these things or the way forward in this ESG journey, there are still uncertainties, and those uncertainties are also, everybody is at the start point. When you talked about hydrogen, the whole world is at the start point. Whomsoever cracks the code is going to be the leader, and that should be the way Indian companies need to approach this. The whole ESG has brought a level playing field to the industry, because many things are just opening up. Jay, over to you. Any thoughts on that?
I think I echo with Anup. It is how do you look at it, Santosh? You can look at it as a headwind or a tailwind. And I think we have enough examples of organizations who have converted ESG into a huge opportunity. And I think you nailed down for a country like ours, it's massive. I think the kind of level playing field it creates vis-a-vis some of the people who are ahead of the game because of history from us, everything becomes anyone. I think pandemic has again further leveled it down. I think it is our hour, it is our opportunity, and as a country we must tap into it. I would say that we have to convert all the ESG challenges into opportunities, convert into a tailwind, and we can do it.
There's a question which has come in as I think I will take because just this question and then we can conclude.
Yeah, is our higher education system ready to help industry towards ESG for next decade? That's the question which has come. Have I read it rightly?
Okay. So the question is the higher education ready? Is that the question to take us to the next level?
Yeah. So
okay.
Is ESG getting integrated into our education system or not?
Yes, it has started. Of course, the pace would pick up very soon now because of the kind of importance which is the subject is getting in. You are seeing this now across all the management institutes, definitely, but it has even started with IITs. And I have seen IITs recruiting people, professors with an sustainability and ESG background to kind of teach the students. So it's getting incorporated. So for me, I wrote an article sometime back comparing the whole of this ESG as almost similar to the quality revolution which happened in the 90s, right? Quality, the way it came in, quality was integral to everything you do. And I think the way the ESG is coming in is going to be the same way. Whether you are an accounting professional, ESG is going to be critical for you. Whether you are a supply chain professional, ESG is going to be critical for you. Yeah. If you are a chartered, so even a law professional, ESG is going to be critical. So I think the way it is going to progress is that ESG will go the quality way. In the 90s, you have a quality assurance, quality control, all those kind of things. But if you look back today, how many quality control departments are there? It got integrated, right? I mean, if you are an HR professional, quality is part of that now. So I think the way forward is going to be that it will get integrated to every stream of study.
Lovely. Thank you very much. We cannot close without getting a question from Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti. He is a great evangelist of ESG today.
It was a fantastic session, and I particularly am impressed by forget the headwinds and the tailwinds. I'm just impressed by the progress everybody is making. And I know that all of you in your own organizations are doing a fabulous job. Just tell me, each one of you, what is it that you want as the most significant outcome? Action, as Jairam said.
Maybe Shailesh, I can start. For me, being an accountant, I would like sustainability accounting to be the norm. To Santosh's point, I would want all our reporting system to be integrated. I would like all our systems start measuring enterprises on the carbon emission that they are making, not only on the profit that they are making because of carbon, but also the cost that they are kind of incurring to the planet.
Yeah. So the first time yesterday at a board meeting, I had occasion to tell the CFO, please report quarterly on integrated reporting, 6 capitals. Don't tell us only about financial outcomes. Great one, Jay. Thanks. Jairam, what do you say?
Well, I just said saying that for me, this is not a central function anymore. I want to see this integrated, and there is nothing as separate in this. Whatever we talk about, there's nothing separate if you really look at it. As Jay mentioned, in the accounting, it need to be integrated. The cost of natural capital, the cost of social capital need to be integrated. It's the only way forward. And you need to kind of reduce the inefficiencies in your value chain. So circularity, circular economy is a necessity. I mean, that's the only way you can go. So I think the understanding that it is integral to the way the humanity will move forward and integrate it in every stream of business would be my key. Although it would be a risk to my profession, but having said that, it doesn't matter.
No, there's no risk to any profession. All of us will find better things to do. But Mr. Saha, your last word as the 2.5 lakh crore market cap L&T.
Well, Mr. Haribhakti, what you said reminded me of what I heard in a conference of the IIRC, International Integrated Reporting Council, some years ago in London. And where I think it was Mervyn King, I think, who said it. But he said that every number that we deal with, whether it is an environment number or a social metric number, every number is actually a financial number. It is only that some numbers are already financial and some numbers are pre-financial. They are going to reflect in your financial outcomes. You have to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you all. It was a terrific session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Santoshji. Thank you very much, Atulji. Thank you very much, Jay, and for joining us at such a short notice. We have just 30-second break for a video from IMA and from L&T, if you'll kindly allow, sir.
Please go ahead.
Ravi, please go ahead.
Our blue planet, green future. The world is learning the new news.
Very nice. Yes, Vikesh ji, would you introduce the session immediately and the introductions of our panelists, wonderful panelists, and then we'll jump into the session very quickly.
Yeah. So we move on to our third and final panel discussion on harnessing digital opportunity. India has been making huge gains on IT services opportunity, and now it is time for India to make it big on the digital opportunity as well. Courtesy Geo and Zoom, we could run not only our businesses and education, but also our weddings and other social functions during the pandemic. That's the power of digital that India, 100 crore people of India have experienced. The discussion on this is between IOD Mumbai chairman, Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti, whose introduction is already with the audience, and speakers know him so well. We welcome our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. Gopal Vittal, Managing Director and CEO of Airtel for India and South Asia. And I am Kolkata alumni and an earlier very successful global career of 20 years with Unilever across India, China, Indonesia, and Thailand, etc. While Mr. Vittal is busy transforming a telecom company into a digital company, we would like to hear from him about the strategic changes he's making in capturing digital opportunity at Airtel and his advice for other players. We also welcome our guest of honor and distinguished speaker, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, an author, a digital wizard of India, a star alumni of IIT Mumbai, and also of NITI, holding multiple board positions at SBI, Honeywell, Hinduja Group, Principal AMC, and many more, is surely going to be interesting and exciting too. He is highly recognized globally for his two great success stories of Aptech and Zensar, and many more as well. He has held top positions at NASSCOM and other IT bodies as well, contributing to national thinking about the digital strategies. We would like to hear from him also about Yono, a great digital property in the SBI stable where he's sitting on the board. And we would like to request Mr. Haribhakti to kindly take over. Sir, please.
Thank you, Vikesh Bhai, for introducing our wonderful panelists. Both of you are legends in a lifetime. And it's such a pleasure and a privilege to be with both of you. I mean, you know, we've just finished the session of NASSCOM, Ganesh, and it had Yuval there, and it had so many leading lights, and I'm sure you were there. So maybe you want to share how digital in India is going to be influenced by not just the dramatic changes that we're all seeing, but also by the cautionary signals that are coming out of people like Yuval, who's saying we need to rein in the ill effects of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So over to you, Ganesh.
Thank you very much, Esg, and pleasure for me to be here. And thank you, IOD, for inviting me. And it's interesting that you spoke about Yuval, because we were just discussing Yuval Noah Harari literally half an hour back, because I was chatting with Ravi Venkatesan about his new book. And the new book is What the Heck Do I Do with My Life? And we were actually talking about what Yuval Noah Harari rightly says, that we'll all live much longer lifetimes. Every 15 years, you have to develop new skills. And it's going to be a very, very different kind of planet that we live in. So to answer your question, I think, see, there are, and I heard that in ESG also, the final question on headwinds and tailwinds. At the end of the day, digital is a great enabler. I mean, today there would be, I remember speaking at a conference in Abu Dhabi 4 years back on digital transformation. And like everybody else, I had a sinusoidal curve which says, which are the industries at the top end of digital, bottom end. Something has to be at the bottom. So by mistake, I put oil and natural gas. And one very aggrieved Arab sheikh got up and said, "Sir, in ADNOC, we are doing so much digital. How dare you put us at the bottom?" So I quickly dropped that slide from future presentations. And everybody's in it. And the minute something takes a world by storm, there's always going to be, fans and naysayers. And there is no doubt that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I have a very good friend called Martin Migoya, who runs this amazing digital company called Globant, listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And Martin's point is that, look, while we all get so hyped about, WebEx and Zoom and Teams, etc., we mustn't forget that if we completely lose the human context, then somewhere as human beings, we will stop being productive. I think that's the flip side. And AI, of course. I mean, there is a new role that is very popular in the IT industry called the AI ethicist role. Okay, somebody who can look at AI ethically so that it doesn't become a torment for the world. So I think these are all going to happen. But one thing that we cannot deny, I think, that I do a lot of work with the Ministry of IT, and we don't know when India will become a $5 trillion GDP economy, but we are pretty sure that by 2006 latest, the digital India will be $1 trillion. You mentioned IT services and NASCOM. That's growing unbelievable pace, and we'll probably be 350 billion by 2026. And the interesting part is the whole ecosystem of digital India, which is all the platforms and everything, and we can talk about that later. But those will contribute the balance 650 billion. Now, those platforms, today Nandan, of course, has done a great job with UPI. But if you go beyond UPI into digital platforms for agriculture, for SMEs, for skills, for education, literally every part of the country, thanks to the National Optic Fiber Network, will be amenable to platform economies. And you're going to see a very different India. So I think I'm a great optimist on digital. I think applied judiciously, applied well, it can completely transform. And honestly, that's what we're all excited about.
Thank you, Ganesh. Mr. Vittal, I'm seeing the amazing way in which Airtel is getting transformed. And I also know that levers came out of a very large program of ESG. And so you have had the fantastic vantage point in both these companies, and you can fuse both these ideas and talk about why, just as the future vehicle will be computers on the road virtually, why future of telecom will be instantaneous connect of all humans across the globe. Over to you, Mr. Vittal.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me over. It's a real honor to be here. I think the pandemic has clearly, accelerated the pace of digitization, as we all know. But, for me, the way I would like to think about it, Mr. Haribhakti, is really three questions that kind of, strike me, especially as I looked at that session that's been planned. Number one is, what does really digital transformation mean for a company today? Number two is, how do you make it happen? And number three is, what should you do if you're kind of, a CEO or a board member or a leader in the company? So just taking that first question first, which is, what does really digital transformation mean? For me, it means one of three things. Either it means get more growth, or it is about reducing cost and making the business more efficient, or it's really helping the business get into adjacencies. And I do want to give you a few examples from me just to sort of bring it alive. So, take the objective of getting more growth. Either it's more consumers or more share of wallet or lower churn, so that you actually hold customers for longer. And I think this will come from more personalized, more tailored, more complete solutions. So one of the examples, for example, that we have within the company is something called Open Telco. Now, we're in a business, very strange business, where we are remembered when we don't work, not remembered when we work. And that's the nature of the business that we're in. So one of the things we learned is that we've applied a lot of predictive analytics to really understanding, what we can do to improve the network. But the big insight for us was that if you're transparent to customers and very specific, so, if you send a message to a customer, let's say in Nungambakam in Chennai, and say, we know there's a problem in your area, and unfortunately we've not been able to fix it, but in the next few weeks we'll be able to fix it. That gives them tremendous comfort. And so we've been able to lower our churn through that nature of predictive analytics by functions coming together, which requires a lot of collaboration. So that's just one example. The second part, which is about reducing cost, making the business more efficient. Ultimately, this is about digitizing our core, your core processes. So, for example, in India, there's a lot of many local cable operators, they provide last mile fiber to the, they have access to last mile fiber to the home through the cable route. So what we've done is actually created a digital model which allows polygons to be created at the level of 1,000 and 2,000 homes in every little city. It allows digital contracts, it allows payment analytics, GST registration, and all of this is done within minutes at 1/5 of the cost of having done it ourselves. And that has enabled us to actually get out there and cover a lot more homes on fiber.
Fabulous.
The third example, of course, the third objective is to get the business into adjacencies. And this is where, what we try to do is using the digital ecosystem that we have, which is, we have about 200 odd million users today on our digital assets. We also have a payments bank license from the Reserve Bank of India, which is using our payments platform. What we've been able to do is actually create a payments business and a digital business of about 2,000 crores annualized. And this is meant reimagining some of our businesses, but the owners of these are totally different from the existing resource in the company. So it's almost incubated separately. The second point I do want to make is, how do you make it happen? And here I've learned 4 things. One is, you really got to think through your tech stack. I mean, for a company like ours, which is about 25 years old, we've had layers of complexity. So the real question is, what do you keep? What do you change? And you have to think of it as a multi-year journey. The second is data. Data is essential in the digital world. I mean, and I'm maybe preaching to the converted, most of you know this, the right data lakes, the right data models, who captures the data, how do you store it, how do you use it? Today, we have almost 400 people within the company across data science, data infrastructure, and the data product. The third part is, how do you then drive adoption? And I must say here, one of the mistakes I made about 8 years ago was I created a digital team, but put that team at the periphery of the organization and building new services such as music and video. And while they were successful services, it really didn't do much to the core. So about 4 years back, we went back, re-looked at the whole organization and said, this has to be at the core, which is the first point that I made on the three objectives. And finally, to make it happen, you need the right governance. How are you organized, across product, engineering, business? And this is over and above compliance and things like cybersecurity and data privacy. And finally, I would say, one of the things that I've learned is that if you're a CEO or a board member, then really digital and digitization or digital transformation is not about data and technology, but it's about people. People are unpredictable and people are difficult. And people find new ways of doing things difficult. So it really means changes in the way you structure yourself, in the way you think about roles. And one of the things I've learned is that you don't ask for technology. Instead, you ask for growth, you ask for differentiation, you ask for improvement of experience, you ask for lowering of cost. The second thing I've learned is that you have to build a talent brand. Your own cadre of your digital has to be finally grown through your own timber. And this means role clarity. This means how are the roles set up. I mean, I spend inordinate amounts of time on this side of the problem. And like I think the earlier speaker was saying, which is, if you look at the future, it's already here, but it's not. It's just that it's not evenly distributed, and it's just that there's an asymmetrical way in which people address it. So I think those are some of the things that that I've seen in my experience.
Fabulous! What a lovely set of ideas you have opened up. Ganesh, what do you feel has been the single biggest driver to make people get on to this whole journey of digitization and then stay on it? A lot of people come back and tell us that, what do we do with all the legacy investments we've made in software and hardware? We now need to change everything. Things have moved so dramatically. So what strategies are people actually adopting to leverage the investment and then still get going in the way that Mr. Vittal was describing?
That's a great question, because I still remember 15 years back, there was this complete heretic who wrote an article in HBR, even called Carr. Carr had actually mentioned that, look, a day will come very soon when nobody will buy information technology anymore. So he was like, what the heck is he talking about? I don't know. And those were the times when everybody was recommending 5% of your organization's investments should be in IT, etc. But he's being proved right. So the legacy investments we made, I mean, if you look at digital, it started off with what they call the smack stack. People embracing social media for something beyond just exchanging messages, mobility, and we talked about that, and that's where, of course, companies like Gopal's will really grow superbly. Analytics, which he mentioned, and cloud. So the minute you say cloud, I think the epiphany, if you will, was people realized I really don't have to buy technology. I mean, when Amazon and Google and Microsoft are there to build these huge, cloud architectures, I just have to know how to move my data, my applications, my infrastructure to the cloud. Never invest in technology again. And as Mr. Carr had pointed out, you will buy tech information like you buy electricity. I mean, when you need your house to be lighted up, you don't go install a power plant. I mean, you just put in a line. So similarly, that's what happened. I think cloud is making us really everything as a service. So I think that's the epiphany. And to your other point, Shailesh, about drivers, the biggest driver was COVID, if you ask me honestly, because suddenly social distancing and people working from home became a mandate rather than something optional. So the original idea of people clustering around a coffee table and discussing, etc., we forcibly got separated, and people discovered the power of digital. Today we have to rediscover what I was saying earlier. We have to rediscover the power of physical proximity. And again, a lot of companies are experimenting with AI to say, for instance, I mean, if you say the best innovation came from a chance meeting over lunch or a drink or the coffee table, can we simulate that? So there is one company which has teams of people, 50 to 300 working together. And AI is actually looking at where could be those great collaborative ideas come from. And every Friday at 4 o'clock, you mandatorily are told that today you have your own coffee, he's having his own coffee. You're in Mumbai and the other person is in Buenos Aires. But you are forced to get together by a predictive analytics model, which says that if these guys spend an hour chit-chatting, great ideas will come for the organization.
Okay, fabulous.
This is one of the very positive ideas that I've seen happening. And just to comment on what Gopal said, I completely agree with him. In fact, the science of digital says that it starts with productivity improvement, moves to experience improvement, but like we see in our lives with Netflix and Amazon, and then moves to complete business model change. And business model change is where the big money is, what Jeff Bezos' Amazon has shown. And his other point, I mean, the 4 drivers that he mentioned, I'll just add 2 more. Design thinking, which is the ability to craft customer journeys, employee journeys, which were almost impossible to do. I mean, at State Bank of India, for instance, we are thinking of 2 new digital journeys every month. Earlier, there was only one journey, which was going to the branch and hoping that the guy will get you. But today, it's like, you can craft, and employee journeys are amazing. People can learn on the fly. AI can tell you what to learn. Adaptive learning this is absolutely amazing. And culture. I mean, you did allude to it, Gopal, but I'm just re-emphasizing that if you do not have a 24/7 culture in the organization, then all your technology, process, data, analytics will go waste. I think if you get that act together, and I'm sure we'll come to the topic, and boards are intelligent enough to review what's happening on these outcomes, I think then you have a digital success that we all dream about.
Fabulous. Gopal, all that Airtel is doing is to facilitate synchronous communication through the device that has become so ubiquitous, the smartphone or the other phone. But the world is moving to an era where it is the productivity of asynchronous interaction which will drive innovation, which will drive growth, which will drive all the great things that we all wish to see as outcomes. So how are you pivoting your thoughts and processes and the way that Airtel will meet asynchronicity?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think if you look at today, I think 5G is now around the corner. And if you look at 5G as a technology, what it really does is that, number one, it has massive capacities of, massive chunks of spectrum, which can really create massive capacities and blazing speeds and so on. The second thing that it does is it has much lower latency. So machine to machine applications, which require very low latency. For example, let's say, there's somebody sitting in Chennai and remotely doing a surgery for, somebody sitting in Kumbhakonam, right? How do you do that without making a mistake, without any time lag? And I think that is the second thing that 5G as a technology allows you to do. And the third thing that it allows you to do is what's called concurrency. One of the challenges of a radio network, and India has, of course, leapfrogged the fixed broadband technology and gone straight to wireless, which I think is the right thing because it's much cheaper for a country like India with low revenue per users to actually go wireless rather than through fixed broadband. What concurrency does, Mr. Haribhakti, is that it allows you in a given geographical area to have many, many more devices simultaneously. One of the challenges with existing technologies such as 4G is that if you have too many devices, it creates what's called noise level, which means that devices start interfering with each other and you have a miserable experience. So a given amount of resource can only be shared by a certain number of devices. Right. Whereas here, you can have 100x the devices that you have. And this is where machine to machine applications will come in. The fact today is that globally, the ecosystem has still not evolved. But remember, when you look at 4G, many businesses were actually built on this technology. The food delivery model, correct, the ride sharing model, all of these businesses were actually created on 4G technology. So I think it needs a ecosystem. It needs an ecosystem of collaboration across the chain, which is, governments, private sector, telecom companies, technology companies, legacy manufacturing companies, and all of that, I think, needs to really happen. I do want to pick up one more point, and I think Ganesh was alluding to culture. And I can't, I just want to underscore, for this to happen, for anything to happen around digital, especially change, because one of the things I've learned is I don't use the word change within the company. I don't use the word transformation because it just scares people, right? Just, talk about the objectives and make, enable the process and set up the roles so that it starts happening. But to me, I think culture, and if I might just sort of stress on it a little bit, since Ganesh brought it up. Absolutely. The question is, to create a digital transformation, you need a much flatter organization. Point number one. Point number two is you need a highly collaborative organization, and that means, and as human beings, there are always going to be fracture lines. There are always going to be, competing agendas, so to speak. So how do you, as a board, or how do you, as a CEO, have authentic conversations around those fracture lines with teams that are empowered across product, engineering, business, and keep the customer at the center of all of those conversations? And I think that, to me, has been my biggest lesson. I spend almost 3 days a quarter with the product, engineering, business teams in a room, just talking about some of the softer sides, which is things like trust, things like how do you create velocity, things like how do you bring the customer at the heart of this rather than have your opinion on a particular issue. That, to me, has been the single biggest lesson that we've learned in the
phenomenal. As we often say at IOD seminars, culture eats strategy for breakfast. The Peter Drucker quote, which I know Ganesh is very fond of. But that's quite profound and so important. And thanks for those insights on what 5G is going to deliver. And it's a world where we are thinking about satellite-based Wi-Fi, and we are thinking of ubiquitous Wi-Fi. And no wonder the government is saying that data center creation will be treated as infrastructure. It almost appears to me that Airtel will pivot to being an infrastructure company from a services or a product company. That's the path that the whole world is going to take to keep all of us talking to each other in a sensible way. Very insightful. Ganesh, can you talk to us about the metaverse and why suddenly the entire conversation seems to have pivoted to creating this new world around us in which we would have a completely different four-dimensional ability to communicate, interact, buy, sell, do whatever, learn, unlearn, whatever.
Okay, so let me preface that, Shailesh, by two historical examples. Go back almost 15 years. There was an entity created on the internet called Second Life. In fact, I remember I was running Zensar. Glad you're nodding your head. You've never heard of it. And I remember at that time, if you thought you were James Bond, I mean, you could give yourself the James Bond avatar, and you could hide yourself, and you could wander around a non-physical universe. And I remember in Zensar, we created a full Zensar campus there, and we actually met a person dressed as a wolf. That wolf was his avatar. We interviewed that person in Second Life. Finally, we said, hey, we love what you're saying. Now can you meet us in this real life? And he came and met us in Pune in the Zensar campus. We hired him. So this is your, what we call phygital, and so many words we use. This is the modeling of the virtual world and the real world. So that's one data point. Second data point, I'll take you to what Paul Doherty actually spoke in NASCOM even this time. But Paul in the World Economic Forum in Davos, I think it was 3 years back or 4 years back, he presented his case for what he called the dark reality, DARQ, which is that is the future. And if you quickly look down that list, D is distributed ledgers, which is a euphemism for blockchain. Then A is, of course, artificial intelligence and analytics. R was mixed reality, what Satya Nadella of Microsoft had started talking about, which is augmented reality, virtual reality. And the fourth was quantum, Q. And Q, of course, I mean, today quantum computing and 5G is all exactly what Gopal said. So if you take the dark reality and you put that with Second Life, what Mark Zuckerberg is talking about in metaverse is exactly that.
Correct.
It's also, interestingly, since I love talking about culture and psychology, the psychology of individuals, especially the digital natives, is please leave me alone. Okay? Don't push advertising at me. Don't push webinars at me. Okay? I don't want to hear anything that you guys are saying. When I need something, I'll go find it out myself. So it's the pull-based mechanism of information access, which is going to score over push-based access. Absolutely. So in this context, it's already happening on Twitter. I mean, honestly, I read only one newspaper. I don't need the Times of India. I don't need the Economic Times. I just read the Indian Express features because most of my data comes by following 150 people on Twitter. I mean, if you follow the wrong 150, you're dead for life. But if you follow the right 150, you get what you need rather than listening, wading through advertising and extra stuff. So when this is the trend that we are seeing. So what metaverse will do is give you your preferred universe, which means you can really create the user experience, user interfaces that you like. You can live in a universe which is populated by people whom you want to listen to. Like I said, I click on Twitter. Tomorrow I will live on Twitter or live on metaverse. Now, is that good news? Again, from a psychology point of view, no, because you will never get new experiences because you decide very early in life that this is the experience, these are the people I want to hang out with. And you might actually miss out on opportunities to meet new people. But this is where metaverse will go. So the creating your own virtual universe and interacting largely within that is, I think, where we are heading. And as I said, I don't like it from a psychological point of view, but from a pure customer experience, employee experience point of view, it's fabulous. I mean, to give you one last statistic, we all know that e-learning has been pretty much a failure worldwide because course completion rates on even some of the big platforms, less than 12%. Uncharitable people would say 6%. But today, thanks to AI, thanks to adaptive learning, the new platforms which engage with the learner are able to get 70-80% course completion rates. So that is what will happen on metaverse. That what you communicate to your audience will be that much more effective than just pray and hope that somebody is picking up your ads or buying from you. So it's going to be a very different world. Hopefully, most of it will be good.
Lovely, Ganesh and Gopal. I'm sorry I have to run, but Mr. Pradeep Chaturvedi will continue this session along with Vikesh Bhai. Thank you and all the best. thanks to both of you for making this.
Shailesh is disappearing into metaverse.
Yeah, that's right.
Shailesh, before you do that, you need to promise to Mr. Ganesh Natarajan about the next conference at Pune.
Yes.
Because the kind of pictures he is sharing about Pune, the golf course, my God, lovely pictures of Pune he's sharing.
So we're all coming there, Ganesh.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me know.
Ganeshji, you are confirming some good golf course venue for IOD?
Yes.
We will throw open Shaniwar Wada and the golf course to you. Don't worry.
Lovely.
Oh, lovely. Shaniwar Wada is. Thank you so
Lovely.
much.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Gopalji. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Yeah, really
Thanks,
appreciate your time at such a short notice. And Ganeshan, especially Ganeshji, the way you responded quickly to my request. Thank you so much. And Mr. Gopal also, within minutes, you confirmed your participation, sir. Thank you very much. We are grateful to both of you for your time. And thank you so much. We look forward to your support and guidance for IOD in future also. We have our Vice President, Mr. Pradeep Chaturvedi ji, joining us. Pradeep ji, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Vikesh ji. It was a wonderful opportunity to listen to some of the best presentations on the topics that you had announced, and it's really showing also the confidence of IOD when we keep the theme as the board summit on a confident corporate India. As a matter of fact, it's not only just the confident corporate India, but also the confident government. The government, the way they have placed their confidence into it. The budget is really revolutionary in a sense that the government has opened out for the first time to see that if the private sector is not coming, what are the elements that will make private sector move? And they have taken very bold decisions which were earlier not taken. You have really to work. You have to really to work and show your enterprise and your skills to really use these government support systems and create them into the multiple factor improvements. That's a very great thing. And this confidence in the government or the industry has not come just from nowhere or overnight. It has taken quite some time. If you remember that the Rio Plus 20, which was held in 2012, earlier there were 3 pillars, but the 4th pillar of the industry was added to it, and everyone realized that unless the industry will play an important role, it's really the growth may not be coming at a pace which is required. The government, the international agencies, and the financial agencies alone were not sufficient, because we saw from 1992 to 2012, the 20 years, the growth that we achieved in 20 years, the Millennium Development Goals and everything was being missed out. But now, when you are moving with the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, industry has come out in a very big way, and the UN Global Compact with the industry, whether it is for the industrial growth or for the net zero, these have all shown great importance and the opportunities. And the 3 panel discussions that you had organized, I must compliment you. These are the 3 major elements which were being observed by those who had appreciated that during last 2 years of the pandemic years, what were the 3 major things where people were working. And these were the unicorns and the decathlons, or from startups to people really coming with new courage and new technologies and utilizing all forms of possible, whether it's digital form or physical form, trying to do it, and then converting every opportunity, every difficult place into an opportunity, and taking care of ESG thoroughly, and making the digital opportunities into a major transformation. Now there have been various studies that were conducted during last 2 years by major consulting companies. It has been shown that whereas earlier we were thinking that the unicorns are as if they are the difficult thing, they cannot come. But a large number of Indian companies have shown how they have changed the face of the industry, how they have brought around the economic growth in the industry. And that is the fastest thing. And the digital education and the digitalization of the whole system, the rate at which we have been able to do it is phenomenal. There have been some companies with major infrastructures who could move faster, and others could move a little slow. But in due course of time, they found in 6 to 8 months, which would be considered as the laggards, also came at par, and then combined all these unicorns and the startups have really transformed in a big way. And that has also pushed the larger companies to think as to at what pace they must move. They could not have grown at an incremental increase, but they must also look out for a factor increase. And you have found that many of the major industries have really done this change. with the corona pandemic, as well as the climate change issues that were really central stage, everyone was really thought of the problem of the carbon emissions and the carbon economy. How do we decarbonize the whole economy? How we move towards net zero? And that is again the industry really looked out for enterprise, and also looked out for skills development, skills of different kind. And therefore, very recently, I mean, what you must have heard only from last month onwards, a different meaning of CSR. Earlier, we thought this corporate social responsibility alone, but now the new words are after the Glasgow conference, what people have really started talking about. C stands for competence, the S for sustainability, and therefore we have to really change. We have to change the whole system that was being talked about earlier, and the resilience which was talked about during the pandemic. But resilience became a much bigger force after the Glasgow conference. Although some people feel that the net zero targets which were being suggested between 2030 and 2050, India did not agree. But there's a very specific reason. Let me tell you, I've been into this sector, energy sector, for last 40 years, and I've attended various World Energy Congresses. I remember in 1992 when we had a World Congress in Madrid, the Chinese vice premier got up, and everyone in the panel was criticizing that coal should move out. He got up and said, look here, if I have coal, I'll use coal, whether the world likes it or doesn't like it. Now, the bold statement which our Prime Minister made at Glasgow, that we will attain net zero, but we'll attain by 2070. This shows that the kind of investments that we have made, when will we be able to really get the returns out of them, and then we'll be able to achieve. By 2070 is the point, taking into consideration all the coal-operated plants and how the new technologies will change the whole face. We might attain by 2050 or by 2060. The UN Compact on Industry for Net Zero, which was started, has been signed by some very major companies in India and who have made that change, which include Mahindra's, which include Adani's, and the Adani Green Energy, Adani Transmission, Bharat Airtel, ITC, JSW Steel, JSW Energy Limited, NTPC, of all the company, the public limited, and the Renew Power. They were the first ones to sign on it. Similarly, they also asked the various cities and the local administrations. And one of the first was under the government of Uttar Pradesh, the city of Ayodhya's local administration signing on to the net zero commitment of the UN Compact. They have also, it's really refreshing to note that Indian Railways, whom people have been defining with the various motives, they promise for the net zero by 2030, and they find they're right on track. They have done most of the electrification, and these I'm just giving a few examples where industries have played their important role, and with the support, because we always thought that private sector alone is not sufficient to play the role, and because we have to bring around a revolutionary change also in the infrastructure, the whole infrastructure. And if the private sector gets support from the government, they would be able to do it. An important thing on digitalization is the education system that we have to do. For example, along with it, if we are moving on to the say cleaner technology. Now, if I am promoting hydrogen or energy, or I'm promoting the electric vehicles, look here, we can't be just developing the electrical vehicles and applying the engineering principles and applications which are done only for mechanical engineering, or we are without teaching on the energy engineering. If we still teach them with an outdated system, with the automated control systems, how are we going to do it? The government has, for the first time, really looked into the higher education policy and brought into these elements, put in more money. Maybe they say after 1956, the percentage investment had gone up for the first time, first percentage of GDP. This will have a remarkable impact when the academic facilities will support the industrial development, and I'm sure the way the competence, the sustainability, and the resilience that is being done, we must realize that when most of the we have been through the award system that IOD has. We have the Golden Peacock Award every year. We look into some 1,000 applications or so. We find that some of the companies, our major companies, are far ahead of the global leaders into those sectors. The principles that they adopt, the the measures that they are having, or the corporate governance practices. Similarly, for sustainability, now let me just give you that there is a difference between net zero and carbon neutrality. Now, these two are not interchangeable words, just as sustainability and sustainable development have never been, although the people have been using them interchangeably. Carbon neutrality means that all through your journey, you've got to be using the methods which are carbon neutral. And then you attain the net zero goal. Whereas net zero goal you can do even by marketing your carbon emissions for some other purpose. Now, this is why the Glasgow conference makes a remarkable change and the whole attitudinal change in thinking, that you talk of competitiveness, you talk of sustainability, and sustainability all along the path with the carbon neutrality, and the resilience, which is different from flexibility, and resilience in the Himalayan regions or the hilly regions, and even in the coastal belts all over the world. These are the things which are required, and we have even focused on simple principles on the living lifestyles, and these lifestyles have to undergo major changes. Industry has played through its CSR funds. Worldwide, it has played an important role. And some of the major revolutionary things that you have seen in India are really the effort of many of the private industries under the CSR route. One of them is the schooling education, which has been done by Airtel, the program which has been recognized now worldwide. We can talk of many of the companies, but I'm very sure that these three things, that the three subtopics on which our Mumbai chapter at the zonal office has focused, that is on the launching of decadrons, or what you say, the role of the startups and how they have really impressed. If the public sector or the public sector banks or the banks were not available or were not willing to support here, they had no problem attracting funds for the ideas that they had. The actioning of the ESG, the way the various companies have done, the ESG rating systems, which have got 14 different elements, have really brought around a remarkable change. And what Prime Minister gave out as the five-point principles at the Glasgow conference has also made everyone to sit up and think of the revolutionary transformation, not just transition into the whole world as to what we need to do. I'm sure this IOD is this effort by the West Zone with Mr. Vikesh Walia, Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti, and all of them, has been a remarkable thing, reflecting what IOD has been making it a permanent journey for last 30 years. And this is our simple contribution to the humanity at large, not only in India, but the worldwide. And I must compliment all our regional office. Vikesh, thank you very much for inviting me for this, to be a part of this important discussion. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate your valuable time to us, and we look forward to your support and good wishes ahead also.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ravi, time to play the videos once again. Before that, I would like to thank all the participants, all our valuable speakers for their time, and our sponsors, IC, our principal partner, our gold partners, the Association of Accountants and Financial Professionals in Business, IMA, Institute of Management Accountants, Larsen & Toubro Limited, and supporting partner, Bombay Stock Exchange. So, Ravi, can we please play the videos once again finally? Thank you very much, everyone, and we look forward to meeting you soon for another conference. Thank you very much for Team Mumbai for making this happen at such a fast pace.